Direct misfire, talking many war games. Bensome and Spoon are taking aim. Comment, like, and subscribe today, keeping you notified and up to date.
Hello, welcome to Direct Misfire's next Army book review. This week we're reviewing the Undead Army, and today we have some special guests. So we've got Bensome and myself.
Hello.
And we have Vivian.
Hello.
And Hugh.
What's up?
So it's a bit of a group conference today. These two played Undead in the other game.
Warhammer.
Yes, Warhammer. And
the game that shall not be named.
Yes, the other game.
Now we play a much better game with Undead Grizzlies.
Yes. Both of you are fairly new to Kings of War.
Very new.
Had one or two games under your belts.
Mm-hmm. I'm sitting on about half a dozen, I think. And Vivian, what do you got? A couple, man?
One whole game, but that's enough, right?
Yeah, we're experts now.
Yeah. Alright, that'll be enough of that. We don't need to know your life story, so let's just get straight into it. Now, we'll start off with the Undead Army's background. There's not much to say with these guys. The book just goes through what necromancy is, what necromancers do. Looks like it may have originated in Ophidia, which is in the deserts towards the southern end of Matica. And that's about it.
Yeah, I feel like the fluff doesn't make super interesting reading, although it is a lot more interesting if you replace the word vampire with Vivian.
Oh, yeah.
For example, despite its many hideous drawbacks, Vivian exerts a lure equal to that of necromancy. Vivians can be beautiful, terrible, and glorious, above the concerns of humanity, and powerful magicians in their own right. It's just like the real Vivian.
I approve of this message.
The curse of Vivianism.
Yes, it is a curse with some blessings, but mostly curses.
Good pick. Alright, so that's the fluff. We'll get into the rules of this army. So obviously alignment's evil, and as a whole army rule, they have life leech 1. So if a unit does wounds in combat, they get 1
damage
one
back.
damage back. You also have the option to upgrade some units to contain undead giant rats, in parentheses, or are they dogs? Question mark.
What do you think the go with that is? Why are they saying rats or dogs?
I don't know. I know there's a figure with an undead fellow with a dog on a leash that you can get through the magic store.
I was thinking maybe they were, putting direwolves in there, like giving them a bit of a use, because every vampire player has them, and they're not in the list.
Possible.
But I don't know where rats comes from. I don't know, it's somebody's idea.
I don't know. Someone just put it in. Anyway, that gives you an extra life leech, so you can go from 1 to 2.
So that's one of those magic items I know nothing about.
Well, it's just a standard item. It's not actually a magic item because you can take them on most of the units.
Like an upgrade, like wizards giving them extra spells.
How many points is that? Are we allowed
10.
to talk about points?
10 points.
Typically 10 points, yeah.
That's pretty solid for 1 extra life leech.
If
it's
you
not
can spare
bad.
points.
Depends on the unit, I guess.
But it's good that you got the option.
But even a cav getting 3 instead of 2 could make all the difference.
Absolutely.
Or so read the cav. Anyway.
I feel like it's better on.
Not all of them can take that though.
No, not all of it. Only some of them. Generally, like the more creepy skeleton-y kind of things, rather than say werewolves or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think it promotes you taking larger units because that way you might actually have some wounds on you to heal back, and you might have enough attacks to get that healing up. Whereas if you're taking troops and regiments of skellies or whatever, they're probably going to get stomped
Get squished before they can use it. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Alright, let's get into the meat. Oh, they don't really have meat on this army list, do they? They're all bones. Skeleton warriors. The first cab off the rank. Who wants to go through this?
Yeah, I'll start off. So the Skeleton Warriors, these are your sword and board dudes. Come in troop, regiment and horde. Speed 5, melee 5. No ranged attack, defense 4, 10, 12 and 25 attacks. And then you've got, they're fearless with 12, 16, and 23 as the route values, and 75, 90, 150 points for the unit. And for that, your special rules are shambling, and you can take the upgrade of the giant rats or dogs for 10 points.
Cheap.
Very, very cheap.
They don't move all that great. Melee 5's not good. Defense is okay at 4.
They're just an anvil unit.
Yeah, but
Or
from
speed bumps.
From my experience of one whole game, like, I would probably never take them ever. Because
Mm-hmm.
even their points cost, I look at them and I still think they're too expensive, to be perfectly honest.
I kind of disagree. Like, I think they're okay because if you compare them directly to, say, Men at Arms with a sword and shield, you're looking at 40 points less in a horde, 25 less in a regiment, and 15 less in a troop. So it's a significant amount less, and they're effectively identical, except they are melee 5+ instead of 4+. So yes, they're worse at hitting, but then you're not expecting them to do that much damage anyway.
No.
And I'd argue that shambling is both a good and a bad thing, mainly bad, but reasonably good. And they don't waver, really importantly. So, like, I'd say they're only very slightly worse than a standard man-at-arms, but they cost significantly less. So, they're all right.
65 point speed bumps.
Even,
Pretty good.
Yeah, like maybe as a speed bump, but as a horde, that would get charged by two things, and then it's gone, and then you just wasted 150 points.
Well, defense 4 isn't the worst, and they don't waver, so you have to get a fair amount of damage onto them.
Yeah, hell yeah. Like, with an average roll of 7, you need to do 16 wounds to get rid of them.
You're going to need a couple of units to get in there. There's going to be other stuff around that skeleton block. It's not just going to be the skeleton block sitting there.
You got to remember, Viv, in your one game, you played against a very, very hitty army in Ben's, like everything has crushing strength 2 and everything flies and all that kind of rubbish.
Yeah.
So when you play against like normal other infantry units and stuff, they'll hold on for days.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, my poor skeletons in my first game, I had a horde of archers. It lasted like one turn. All he did was charge 2 characters into it. So I don't have much respect for hordes at the moment.
Well, an Archfiend and Basusu into archers.
Yeah, they'll pretty much take out just about anything.
Magic items, would anyone put any magic items on them or upgrade to the giant rats or dogs?
If you got the points, I think the extra undead animals would be okay, just to keep them holding things up.
Yeah, if I took a horde, I'd consider the dogs, but outside of that, probably not. And in fact, I'd cull that pretty quickly if I was short of points in the list.
Yeah, agreed.
Alright, we'll move on to their buddies, the skeleton spearmen. So these guys come in troops, regiments, and hordes as well. Very similar stats, I'll go through them. Speed 5, melee 5, no ranged attack, defense 4, 10, 15, and 30 attacks, so a few more attacks there. They're fearless as well with 12, 16, and 23 as the route values, and points are 75, 105, and 175.
So you also get phalanx on top of the standard skeleton warriors.
Yep, and shambling as per the skellies. And they got the upgrade if you want it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like the attacks are a very minor bonus. You're basically paying between 10 and 25 points for phalanx.
I don't think that's a bad thing. That's quite a good special rule.
Yeah, and the phalanx magic item costs more than that.
I don't think it's a bad thing at all. I think they're not too bad. If you want something to reliably hold people up, they're significantly more likely to do it than regular warriors. Because a lot of things seem to have thunderous charge.
Yeah.
Yes. And with the horde, if you've got a larger army, it's hard to get around the sides to negate the phalanx.
I feel like if you had an army like mine, which has a lot of skellies, I've always wished I had more zombies and less skellies, but it is what it is. I feel like a unit of each of these guys could be okay, because then you could put your spearmen where needed, and you could save the points on the other bros and put them where maybe, facing off against some non-thunderous charge stuff.
So is there any way to improve their hit by just 1? Is there any way to get them +1?
You can give them a reasonably expensive item for the +1 in combat.
I think it's about 45 points.
Yeah, so it's pretty expensive. Because I was thinking 30 attacks, if they were hitting on 4s and you managed to cast that spell that gives them -1 to defense or whatever that is.
The Bane Chant.
30 attacks is a lot.
Crushing strength. Yeah.
That could do some damage and people won't really Oh, they probably see it coming because you only really have one spell in this game, but
Yeah.
it's
I feel
it's
like
good.
they aren't going to kill much in the front much,
Mm,
but you cannot afford to expose your flank to that unit. I mean, it's a big unit, but if it
Mm.
gets a flank on something and you're throwing in 60 attacks, even at 5s to hit, you're going to do some damage.
mm.
And you
Yeah.
could give them elite, which is the lesser to hit item. Gives it's reroll ones for
Yeah.
your hitting.
Yeah, which isn't too bad.
Because all I'm thinking now is like you've got 3 surge guys and you surge them like 20 inches in a turn or something and just put it right in someone's face, and then suddenly they're hitting on 4s and they've got the +1 to armor neg or defense. They could do some damage, but
Oh
yeah.
yeah, if you buff them to the shit house, yeah, they'll do some
Mm.
damage, but then I
Mm.
suppose so will everything else in the list.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, fair enough.
Magic items on these, I think we've just gone through pretty
Yep.
much.
Mhm.
Okay.
Next.
Who wants to do the Skelly Archers?
All right,
Anyone?
Skelly Archers. So these guys, speed 5s, the same as the others. And as you'd expect with archers, they have a worse melee and worse defense with 6 and 5. Ranged is average at 5+, attacks 8, 10, 20. Nerve is the same as the warriors and spearmen at 12, 16, 23. And the points vary a little bit to the other guys, so 75, 100, and 165 for the horde. Nothing special other than they have bows. You can give them the undead animals, and obviously shamble.
Yeah, in between the cost of the shields and the spears, so
Yeah.
pretty similar there. I heard on counter charge that I have the most shots per point in the game. Interestingly,
Uh-huh.
Yep.
Well, they are cheap,
makes sense. They're very cheap. I mean, they don't hit super often, but
but they don't hit any worse than, say, Kingdoms of Men or Empire of Dust or Ogres.
yeah, yeah. I mean, why not? I mean, what you want these guys for is to do 1 or 2 wounds. For me, anyway, they don't do enough damage, especially in a regiment or a troop. Maybe in a horde, but in a regiment or a troop, they don't really do enough damage to meaningfully soften up a target. But it's when
Yeah.
they've got a really badly wounded target, and you just need to pop
You
like
need that
1
roll.
damage on it.
Yep. Just
Really
to put
handy.
a few pips on them.
Get
Yep.
that nerve roll.
Absolutely. And in Undead, I found that Undead in the last game I played against you, Bensome, I found that not I didn't take any archers, I didn't take any catapults, I didn't take any lightning bolts, and I hated it because there were so many times where I just wished I could just force a nerve check. It's just so useful to be able to reach out and touch something. And I
Yeah.
feel like Undead really need that to finish things off because a lot of their things aren't hitty enough to do it by themselves, and a little bit of extra, just a few arrows here and there can really help.
Thoughts on the unit sizes? Would you take more over another size?
For me, it would depend on the army construction. Troops, I'm kind of reluctant just because of the low nerve. One lightning bolt, one average round of shooting, they tend to disappear. On the other hand, they're good for drops to see where your opposition is deploying. So I don't know.
I agree, but like, I feel like regiment's nice because it's not
Yeah.
too much of a bigger footprint. But and yeah, you don't get many extra shots, but you got enough nerve to cop a little bit of punishment.
Yeah, before they disappear.
Yeah, and they can still do those like 1 or 2 wounds out there. Like you can go horde. Like Viv, you went on a horde in your last game, didn't you? How'd that go?
Yeah. Pretty good. I managed to force some.
Flame bearers?
Yeah,
From
what's
the
the
abyss? From the abyss? sorry?
waver? Yeah, so they can make little units waver, I think, kind of reliably, but they're really unwieldy. Like, it's a giant unit, and 24-inch range is kind of garbage. Because most things in this game move so quickly, and because it's not random charging like Warhammer, you get a unit with 8 movement and it's moved 16, it's going to be in your face. There's nothing you can do about it, and then you lose them, and it's over. So I don't really know if it's worth taking a horde because it will die.
You can get around that with Jar of the Four Winds or whatever it's called.
The extra 12.
Yeah, but that's
extra
expensive,
12-inch
isn't it?
range. Yeah,
About
I don't
40
know.
points.
Yeah. I have a lot of these questions in my list construction when it comes to it, but yeah, like I've thought really heavily about taking either 4 units of 10 or 1 horde or some other things, but we'll get to that later.
Yeah, I kind of agree that the large footprint is really troublesome because a lot of what I don't know. Guess we'll find out when we get to the army list. But I think you're very encouraged to take big units in Undead, and having another big unwieldy unit is possibly it's just going to be too unwieldy for you.
It also can't see over things like very easily. Unless you conveniently have a giant hill in your deployment, it's not going to see shit.
Yeah, things will get in the way. I would probably take a couple of troops for the drops, and they can hold objectives and still do something. Even if they take a round of fire, at least it's not a round of fire on something a bit more meaningful.
Yeah, I'd probably take a couple of troops too because I have like 20 archer models.
Mm.
But if I had 40, I'd probably take 2 Regis because they're
Multi-base
only
foo.
25 points more, which is so little extra. And I feel like they're much more likely to survive.
I always find I'm scraping for points, so I've got to cut corners where I can.
Yeah, fair enough.
But it is a good point that you make. Other than, say, Jar of Four Winds, if you were going that way, you'd probably need a Bane Chant Necro to help with that.
Yeah, which isn't bad actually. Taking a horde, if you had heaps of fast cavalry kind of army, like as what am I supposed to call you in this Spoon. That's right. No, I can't say the other thing. It's not safe for work. Taking a horde in an army which has like loads of really small fast units or something like heaps of Soul Reaver cav or something.
Well, they might be able to hold the center.
Yeah, they could hold the center
while the others lap around.
That's it, and just like not let anyone get to you, kind of thing. That could work.
They don't have to do a lot.
Yeah, Bane Chanting
have to...
20 of them though. That's actually pretty terrifying.
And you could give them the extra punch item. So they've got Piercing 1 already, and then Bane Chant for the Piercing 2.
Yeah. I don't know if I'd go that far.
I don't know.
The other thing you can consider is, with the Undead, is the surge ability. So you could shoot into a unit with the Scullies first, and then surge into the front flank or wherever you are with another unit.
That's true. I mean, if you got a caster with nothing else to surge and nothing else meaningful to do, then you might as well chuck a few arrows in before you get in, I guess.
Yep.
Anyway, I think that's it for Scully Archers.
Yep. All right.
I want to do ghouls.
Okay, you can do
Go for
ghouls.
it.
I'm happy about the ghouls. The reason I'm happy about the ghouls is, I'll get to that in a minute, I guess. They're speed 6, they're melee 4 plus, defense 3 plus, attacks 10, 12, 25, nerve 8/10, 12/14, 19/21. So 65, 90, and 150 points. They're cheap as chips. They're exactly the same price as Skeleton Warriors. So I suppose you got to do a comparison there.
They don't shamble.
They got one. Yeah, they don't shamble, which is important. They got one less defense and one better melee attack. So they're slightly better at attacking and slightly worse at defending, which I feel like that actually doesn't matter that much because all that really matters is their speed 6 not shambling, which is totally changes their role for me. Instead of being like an anvil unit like the Warriors, they are a distraction chaff unit.
Yeah, defense 3 is not an anvil.
No, that's right. You get up at like who cares how much damage they do? Probably nothing. But for 90 points, a regiment of 20 is super cheap. You can move 12 inches up the board and get in people's grill. And the reason I like them, like in this version as opposed to Games Workshop's version, is that they're not just another undead unit with some random rule like poison thrown in. They're like actually people because that's what they are. They're like creepy half people. And so I like that they're represented that way, and they're basically like weakling creepy scavenger dudes with no weapons. So
Which is how I liked them originally before
Me
they
too,
changed.
yeah. Like, so Mantic represents them well, I think, because like they don't have very good nerve, they don't have much defense because they're just like naked dudes with no armor.
Yeah.
They don't do a huge amount of damage, but they're all like fast little scuttly beasts, so you can imagine them like running forward and like spooking at the first sign of danger. I just dig the way that they made them thematically.
And because they're not undead, you also have to factor in that when we're playing with ghouls, they can waver.
Yes.
So again, that also adds into, they're not a good anvil. When you're comparing them to, say, the Warriors, their route value is lower by 2 pips, and that could be a big thing there.
It just totally changes their role.
Running up and getting in people's faces quickly is a good way to use them.
Wavering doesn't necessarily affect their ability to be a roadblock because,
Yeah.
I mean, if they waver and don't run away, then happy days, your roadblock stays there another turn. If they just die, which I imagine is usually going to be your intention for them anyway, then again, they've done their job. They've got up in the opponent's face and possibly held them up for a turn and presented a flank or something.
Viv, what do you think of these guys?
Yeah, I think there's cheaper things you can shove in people's faces.
I don't know, 65 points.
Do you? Where?
Actually, that's pretty solid, but like a stray arrow would make them run, because on average you roll a 7, and they've got nerve 10. So you just need to do 3 wounds and it's gone. Where are they?
But then again,
Yeah.
they're shooting at that and not...
Not your
Exactly.
big Gribblies
Yeah,
or other
yeah,
units.
fair enough. Like, yeah, they're good, but I'd probably never take them. But that's because like they don't fit in my list philosophy at much. But I'll get to that later.
Okie doke.
There is
yeah.
literally, just looking through, there is no cheaper unit in the list.
Yeah.
And their movement's
just realised.
6. They're
Like,
so fast compared
you know
with
what I
everything
miss?
else.
I miss direwolves. I really do. I'm like, where are they? Where
amen.
they at, bro? Just, I want one thing that
That's
moves
because
ridiculously
they were
quick.
a pain in the arse.
That was their point.
These are your direwolves in this list.
Naked men. I guess I'll have to do.
Just model
Yeah.
them up hairy. Are we putting items on these guys?
No, keep them cheap.
No, you'd have to be nuts.
Yeah.
+1 movement could be cheeky. How many points is that?
We're looking
Too many,
around
almost certainly.
25, I think, if I am correct, which I'm probably not.
That's pretty
15.
fast.
Brew of Haste,
Yeah.
15 points.
15, there you go.
Yeah,
Speed
I think
7 could be
Nah,
a thing.
no way. Too many other units that would compete for that item.
Yeah, you're right.
But if
Good thought.
your list doesn't have a lot of cav, if you got big chunky large infantry, maybe throw it on in.
You know what I think more and more reading the magic items is a bit of a tangent, but the whole fact that I feel like this game could be more fun hiding the magic items, keeping it a secret.
Having a bit of a closed list for your items, yeah.
Yeah, I don't see why not. Like, it's not like any of them are like game-breakingly over the top, but everyone would take that speed thing on someone. It would just really make you like second guess yourself a bit. You know?
And
And
I
you
would
could use
always
the
be
meta.
taking that explosive crystal item.
Oh hell yeah! Makes it heaps
Every
more
game.
fun when you don't know those.
Well, there you go. There's an item for the ghouls.
I really like the idea of those hidden item though, because like you could move just their normal movement until you charge, and they like measure out, and they're like, "I'm just out," and you're like, "Ha, yeah, you are," and then you just charge them in the face.
Boom.
Anyway.
Although it is a lot more tempting to do that on werewolves in that case and just go, yeah, speed 10.
Yeah.
Yeah. That might be something that we should introduce in the next couple of games, so it goes. Anyway. From ghouls, where do we go?
I've got Soul Reaver Infantry.
The nuclear option.
The nuclear option. Who wants to tackle these fellas? Viv,
Do you want
I feel like
to... Yeah,
these are my
Viv.
love children.
off you go.
So like, if you could get a horde of vampire lords, and by horde I mean troop or regiment, this would be them. Like, I just look at them, and these guys aren't shiny at all.
Explain their stats.
They're brutal. Okay,
Describe
so
them to me.
they move 6, melee 3, which is amazing, no range attack. Defense 5, which is pretty bloody good for infantry. The troop 10 has 20 attacks, and the troop regiment 20 only has 25. So it's almost, you'd almost consider taking them in units of 10. Their nerves real garbage though. So 10 of them, the nerve is 11, 13, and for 20 it's 15, 17, and for 180 points for 10 and 260 points for 20. Oh, it's
Very
pretty brutal.
expensive.
But
It
they've
is
also got crushing strength too.
Garbage nerve,
love those
isn't it?
two.
Yeah. for those
Yeah, it's
points.
garbage nerve. Like one fireball or one lightning bolt, and you'd be like, huh, they got
But-
180 points.
Saying that, those route values are higher than the other troop and regiments that we've just been reading out.
Yeah, but they're 180 points.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
also cost
quite-
more than a horde of...
Yeah.
Their troop costs more than the horde of those other regiments.
Yeah, but just saying, their nerve isn't that bad when you consider the other guys are
Yeah.
worse.
And
in
also,
terms of nerve.
defense 5's just garbage. Like, I
Defense
know,
5 is good.
No, I know it's good, but there's so much out there that you'll play somebody and they will have piercing or crushing strength. They just will. It's inevitable. So most likely they'll be rolling 3-ups to wound you or 4-ups, and all they have to do is 5 wounds in that unit. It's on average gone.
There's another very crucial thing about these guys, which I didn't realize in my first game against Spoon, and that is they are not shambling, so you cannot cast
Surge on them.
No,
which is
that's
kind
right.
of critical because they seem like the kind of unit that would be perfect to surge. You like get them up there and get that crushing strength in there. But the fact that you can't surge them, that pretty much takes them into virtually untakeable territory for me.
And just reading the flavor text under there, just also going by the rule of swapping vampires with Vivians. Vivians are an arrogant breed.
Yeah, I'm gonna read you.
Oh, I don't doubt it.
That's,
Why are you talking to me? You're the help.
tickled.
Can I read the fluff?
You can read the fluff.
Vivians are an arrogant breed, and it follows that those who join their ranks tend to be the mightiest and vainest of their kind. Thus, it is that many knights have fallen to Vivian's curse, and now wander in eternal unlife, always looking to prove their sneering superiority to lesser mortal creatures.
Yeah, that
You
sums
see what
it
I mean?
up.
How much more fun is it this way?
Yeah. All right. I got to go through the book and scratch out all vampires and replace with Vivians.
Sorry, Viv.
Okay.
Anyway,
No,
continue.
no,
So-
I'm enjoying this.
So would people take troops of these, or are they just
Nah.
I
not
would,
bother? You would?
depending on the list, because that's something that the opponent has to focus on. You can run a troop of ghouls in front, and these guys now have cover, harder to shoot. They got defense 5, so they're putting a bit more effort into trying to stop them. And then that's where you can sweep around with your tougher things.
Yeah, if you screen them really nicely, I could see them doing their thing. I mean, 20 attacks
That's a
on
big
a
threat.
troop is pretty insane.
Mm.
3
No
plus
shambling.
melee crushing strength 2. I mean, what kind of wounds are we talking there on average? Like, it's crazy talk.
Yeah, it's a decent chunk, and
That's 12 wounds against something defense 4 on average.
and
12.
180 points isn't out of the world in terms of expense. 260 is you got to protect them. You're focusing
Yeah.
a lot of energy to protect them because you don't want to lose them.
True. I still feel like whatever I was playing it. See, that unit is another reason why things like skeleton archers exist in the undead list, which we'll come to again later. You need something that can reach out and touch, because if you don't have any shooting units in your army, you don't have any lightning bolts, that unit is going to rip you a new asshole. But
Yeah.
if you've got like 2 lightning bolts and you can just zap them, then
Yep.
they're just nowhere near as much of a threat.
Magic items.
Oh god, they get expensive when you start throwing items on them. Really expensive.
Um,
Would you
Fog,
guys
maybe?
ever take them in units of 10 though?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was just saying
Yeah.
he would.
Yeah, I just... One stray missile. Like, yeah, anyway, yeah, go on.
No, I don't think one stray missile. I mean, it has to hit, and then you have to roll high, and then you've got someone inspiring, and then they have to roll high again
Also, if they don't kill whatever they're going to die.
with the counter charge. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty likely.
I don't know about magic items on these guys. The fog is like 35 points, isn't it?
On a regiment to make them stealthy, harder to shoot.
Yeah, maybe on a regiment, not on a troop.
Wait, what does that do? Does that mean they can't target with magic and missiles?
No, they can.
It's just neg 1 to hit.
It's a snag one to hit with shooting.
All shooting, it includes magic, so it's not too shabby.
But magic says on a 4-up.
Yeah, magic's not modified.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I'd skip on magic items on those guys unless I was going
Yeah, I
to
probably would.
invest 260 points in a unit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bloody oath.
Right, move on to their bros on steeds.
On Poonies. Alright, I'll take this one. So, Sorriva Cav are cavalry, as you'd expect. They come in troop and regiments, speed 8, melee 3, defense 6, so they're 1 pip higher than their on-foot fellows. Attacks drop a fair bit, so the troops swinging 10 while the regiment's 20. And nerves a little bit better for the troop at 12, 14. Regiment is the same at 15, 17. And the points obviously go up, 195 and 300 for the regiment. Crushing strength drops by 1, so they've got CS 1 and Thunderous 2 to make up for that. And Life Leech 2 as standard Soul Reaver. Expensive, relatively punchy unit, and hard to get rid of with the defense 6 unless you focus on them.
I love these guys so much. Like,
Regiments or troops?
No, I'd always take them in regiments. So, like, I think I'm never going to play an undead list without 2 units of 10 of these.
600 points.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but it's just so Viv though. That's the exact way you've always played vampires.
Yeah. I sit there and I'm like, I don't want to know your name. Just bend over and just flank charge I did 23 wounds before anything else attacked with one of these units, and that just wipes anything off the table. If you get charged by it, you're gonna die. It's that simple. Also, they're hammer anvils. Like, they don't shift easy either. They're outstanding. You just chase them with somebody who can heal, and they're not going away ever. And life lead to 2 is pretty solid too.
Yeah, I feel like
Yes.
they're a really interesting comparison to the infantry because, like, troop-wise, the infantry has just so many more attacks. It's not funny, and that changes the dynamic a bit. But in the regiment, with only 5 less attacks, going to defense 6 and speed 8, like, just such a massive improvement. Like, you're going to take them any day of the week over
And an extra armor
infantry.
piercing there with the thunderous charge.
Yep.
Yeah, the extra, but then again, they're much more terrain affected.
Yes.
Because
Yeah, keep them out of rivers.
that's right.
Yes.
Thunderous charge. Yeah, when I played Bensome with these dudes, he was able to just position such that. Well, I think we had a bit too much goddamn terrain on that board.
There was a
It's
fair
like
bit
there
of
was
impassable.
nowhere I could charge on the board without losing that thunderous charge. And you often you can't rely on thunderous charge in general. I find you got to expect to only have it some of the time.
Yeah.
Especially if they charge you with a flyer or something and just
Yep.
do like a tiny bit of damage, then
Just do
you've
one
lost your
wound,
thunderous
that's all.
charge. So many ways to lose it that you can't rely on having it all the time. Well, there's the crushing strength 2 on the little dudes. You just always got that, which is nice.
Bit more reliable. In
Better
that
at operating
respect.
in forests, really.
Yes.
Magic
Makes
items
sense.
on these guys?
I think these guys are a pretty good magic item target, actually.
I'd go Caterpillar on these guys.
They're very expensive, but yeah, Caterpillar.
What does that do, by the way?
Pathfinder.
Oh, okay, yeah, that'd be worth it. But they're so good already, I feel like points can go elsewhere. Like, at some point, you're hitting diminishing returns by buffing a unit that good.
True, but I'd say Caterpillar or Shroud.
Does that make me
sorry,
ignore
Fog.
rivers?
It does.
Yes.
Can I take that on everything?
No. Only one item, dude.
I'm actually so upset. God, I hate rivers.
Fog for stealthy is pretty nice. Something like again, if we're talking closed list, it changes for me the kind of magic items I'd be keen to take because something like nimble on them could be amaze balls. Something like +1 movement is for 15 points. +1 movement taking them to speed 9 is pretty damn nice, especially if you're playing elves or just about anything else really, but like something that's really fast, you know. But yeah, but Caterpillar stands out for me as well.
Yeah.
With Thunderous
Agreed.
Charge 2, I mean, and you need that unit to hit. Yeah.
And if you run through terrain, at least you're not now hitting on 4s, but still staying with your potent 3 up.
True that.
Alright, I reckon that's done. Let's move over to the
I'll do this one.
Revenants.
Yeah,
Ben,
they
why don't
come
you take
in
this one?
troops, regiments, and hordes. Speed 5, melee 4. No ranged attack. Defense 5. Attacks are 10, 12, and 25. These guys are fearless with /13, /17, /24 for route. Points 85, 120, 200. And these guys are shambling like your skellies, and they have the options of dropping their shields for a 2-handed weapon for free, which lowers their defense by 1, but they gain crushing strength 1. And you can give them the giant rats or dogs for 10 points if you wish.
So these are elite skeleton warriors, essentially.
This is the reason I'd never take any of the other skeletons apart from skeleton archers, because I see that tiny point investment being so large in their case. Like, a horde of them is just outstanding, and you're only paying, what,
50
25
points
extra
more.
points? Oh, well,
50
I'd only
points,
pick...
yeah, because you're not getting phalanx, so you've got to compare them with the regular warriors.
Yeah, okay. Well, 50 points more, I still see that as a worthwhile investment.
So do I. I mean, you get an extra nerve, which is okay. You get 2 extra attacks, but you get +1 to hit and +1 defense. Like,
The attacks are the same, 25 for a horde.
oh yes, you're right. Sorry, I was looking at nerve. My apologies. But yeah, +1 to hit and +1 defense. Amazing.
Yeah, and the nerves a bit better. Yeah.
I think the 2-handed weapons is not a bad option either. I think both with and without that is good. Like, I feel like it's a pretty good trade-off.
I think if you have some sort of healing, that would be a good way to do it because you want to keep them going, and they don't waver, so you can just heal them back up if they take some damage.
Yeah. defense 5 and a bit of healing in there. On the other hand, you could go the reverse and give them like elite and a bit of surge and give them the crushing strength instead and go the complete opposite direction. So I think both of those could kind of work.
Mm.
If you have a necromancer or a is it a Lich King with Bane Chant behind him, you could go up to CS2 for a turn. So
that's decent.
The King of
amount punch
Lychees, fruit
Lychee,
of doom.
the Lychee King. I am sweet and prickly. Anyway, magic items other than maybe if I was taking a horde, I could go the Exploding Pendant.
Exploding Pendant, controversial choice.
Just because you need to put a few units in there, and the horde covers up
got a big
bit
footprint.
of space.
Yeah.
So
Good
it's
point.
kind
If
of
they get through it, they're
asking
going to
for
have
a
to
couple
pay
of
for it.
units.
Yeah.
But for the scrubs out there, what does that do?
It's once that unit routes, anyone who's touching that unit in a fight takes I think it's 2d6 worth of hits.
Yeah. Wouldn't that be amazing on ghouls, though? It's
No,
like
the
a
defense
missile.
3, so you can shoot them,
Oh,
and then
yeah.
they blow up and nothing really
Yeah,
happens.
okay. But if you're close list and they don't know, it's like a heat-seeking ghoul missile. This
Yeah.
giant naked man just runs at you and explodes.
Yeah.
So 2d6 piercing 3 is what it does.
Yeah, it's pretty owies.
Yeah, if it hits you, you're in deep shit.
Yes.
Am I allowed to swear on this podcast, by the way?
Yeah.
Yeah, we try to avoid F-bombs, but anything else is fairly regular.
I think my count's at 1 accidentally, though.
I'll beep you out
Yeah, thanks.
if you slip up,
Cool,
so
Ben.
that's okay.
Alright, any other magic items for those guys?
Hitting's good. Yeah, I would just go stick on their
If I was giving them
offensive.
the two-handed weapons, I'd be very tempted by crushing strength, I'd be tempted by crushing strength or elite or vicious. I think all
Yep.
three of those are
Yep.
really nice
Anything
on
that-
a horde.
Buffs their combat ability.
Yes, that's it.
Alright,
That's what I'm after.
let's move to their buddies on horses then. The Revenant Cavalry.
Ponies. I'll just keep going.
Yep.
So these guys, cavalry, obviously come in troops and regiment flavors. Speed 8, like the Soul Reavers. They don't hit as well with melee 4. Defense 5 also isn't as good as the Soul Reavers. Attacks drop further to 8 and 16. But these guys are fearless with route values of 14, 17, and their points are quite cheap comparatively at 110 and 170. These guys shamble though, and don't have any crushing strength. They've only got Thunderous Charge 2.
Yeah, very different to the Soul Reaver cavalry, but I suppose it's a better comparison than the Revenants
Different
themselves.
roles.
Because they're very different to the Revenants on foot.
Mm.
Because they don't hit nearly as hard. They're not nearly as, unless they get their Thunderous Charge, I guess, but they're not nearly as good an anvil either. So these guys are your flankers, I reckon.
Mm.
You know?
Yeah, because you want to surge in. You've got speed 8, so they could probably line themselves up fairly well for a surge.
I mean, let's say you have the Potion of the Caterpillar on them, use them as a flanker, you take your regiment, you keep moving up there and rotating as appropriate and whatever, and then you surge your way in there, then you're looking at 32 attacks in a flank with Thunderous Charge 2, then they're diabolical. But in the front or whatever, so if you had a big cavalry force, you'd have your Soul Reavers in the middle and you'd have your Revenants on the flanks, to my mind.
Troops or regiments?
I'd be going regiment.
I'd be going regiment for sure.
I like the idea of 2 troops. That's 220 for 2 defense 5, fearless 14 route value troops that they need to kind of deal with.
True, it's not bad. I mean, 2 troops is okay for going for like shooters or something, but with 8 attacks, and hitting on a 4+, they're gonna do absolutely bugger all most of the time.
Well, as long as they disorder the unit they're going for, though, that's okay.
I'm not putting them in front of everything else. These guys are hanging about the side, so they're
protecting flanks or
and making sure that the opponent deals with them. And if they survive, then they can run in for objectives at the last couple of turns.
There's one reason I'd never take these guys, and I probably won't ever take them, and it starts with a W, ends with an S.
What?
The Wraiths are just they fulfill every role the Cabinet do for 30 more points, and they're better in every way.
They
Yeah,
don't.
but that's always your opinion, Viv, is just go for the most expensive,
The more expensive
diabolical
thing.
thing.
Yeah.
It doesn't always work.
The rates are so good though. I reckon they're the best thing in the entire Undead.
Yeah, they're okay. They're pretty good.
I don't agree.
Before we go any further, is it only the caterpillar you'd put on these guys? Anything else you consider?
For a regiment, I would.
Yep.
Wouldn't
Wouldn't
I
consider
probably wouldn't put anything else on them.
not +1 movement?
No, because I think you need them on your Soul Reavers if you take them, so they can get March or at the double 9.
Okay, so your Soul Reavers wouldn't take Pathfinder.
It's a tough one.
Yeah, so it depends on
'cause
what the list is.
Basically, either of those units you're taking, I feel like Caterpillar's such a good option.
Yeah, 20 points
But,
I must say.
You slap them
Yeah.
on your flank and they're moving 8 inches a turn. I think they're going to do nothing.
You're not taking into consideration Surge, Viv.
Yeah, but are you really going to devote your necromancers to like one flank, just pushing a minor unit sideways? I don't think you are. Like, I just
would
can't
be.
see them working. Yeah.
Well, obviously you aren't.
Yeah. No, yeah. In my design philosophy,
It's more about moving up next to a flank and then surging just a few inches into it.
Anyway,
Because you only need that 1 inch
That's all we need.
if you lined it up well.
let's move on then. We'll move on to the next infantry unit, which is Wraiths.
So, what were you talking about, Vivian?
Oh my god, these guys make me froth at the mouth.
Why?
They're just
Why do
so
they do that?
good. Okay, so the units of 10 have a ridiculously small footprint. They fly, they move 10, they hit on 4s. Their defense 6, 10 attacks was a bit shit, and their nerves a bit garbage as well, but defense 6 is pretty bloody awesome. They've got crushing strength 1, shambling, life legion, and fly, I already said. But these guys just shine, because you can fly over people and then surge them in the rear. And they're defense 6, so they're amazing flying anvils. And I can't get past how good these guys are, because defense 6, again, they're not going to shift. They can
In the
hold
troops
things.
or regiments?
Well, troops are really good because you can do the fly over the top and then charge in the rear tactic for 30 attacks at crushing strength 1 hitting on 4s.
Me and Ben were working. Me and Benson were working out the space that you actually need to do that, and
that's why troop 10 regiments is a lot harder.
Well, yeah, with a troop, it is actually extremely impractical, I reckon. You need your opponent to be in a really unfortunate spot. You need to be about 2 inches in front of their unit, the dead center. You need to be lined up correctly, and you need a necromancer also about the same distance from the front of their unit so that he's still in range to cast it once they fly behind.
It depends on the
Actually
unit
not
though.
very good.
Because they fly, you can put them in their charge arc, out of their charge arc, quite easily. And also, because they can be surged, they can hop around relatively quickly. And then all you need to do is tie it up with something else. Or, because they're defense 6, you can just put them in the front, take a charge, and then do it. They're so tough.
I mean, a troop isn't going to need many wounds before.
No, but if you take the charge, you can do it with a regiment. If you've just been charged with a unit and you survive, then you can re-charge with a regiment. So, yeah, and again, that's 26
really.
attacks. You can. 10 inches enough to get him behind.
And it also depends on what you're up against. I mean, if you're fighting...
Oh, yeah, it depends on their footprint, obviously.
Yeah, that's right, because if they've got a deep footprint, you're not going to be able to do that anyway.
But, one of the things that it took me a long time to get used to, in my game, was the fact that you leave combat after you fight, so you can just bugger off because you fly. They're just such a nightmare to deal with.
Yeah, that is.
I love them.
Flying is amazing, and defense 6 is amazing.
Yeah.
But
They just don't have many attacks, so I feel like you need to get them in a
No.
4+2.
They're
You
there
need
to
a flank
hold.
or a rear to actually do any meaningful damage.
They're there to hold shit, so the Soul Reaver camo and can come along and just wreck. And they do it so well because they fly, and my list basically revolves around a ridiculous amount of surge, and I can surge one
and
unit with
and
rates.
defense 6.
Yeah, so I literally just surge them, 40 inches or something silly, and then, they're in your face. What are you going to do about it? You're going to deal with them, but then the Soul Reaver Cav are there as well, and you can either turn to face and then get charged and die, or they just work so well.
Theory hammer
Yeah, I
too
know,
much.
but in my mind, the hammer and anvil style of play, they are amazing.
I think they're very good screens. If you got a couple of regiments of Soul Reavers, a couple of troops of these guys would be really good.
Yeah, I do think I agree completely with Viv's assessment that they go really well with Soul Reavers.
I might take... I still feel bad about taking a couple of regiments of these because They're not very many attacks, and you have to focus with your surge and make sure everything's right with your necromancer, so you have to protect them as well.
Spoiler alert though, I have 3 units of 20 on my list.
And that's okay.
They're just so good. Anyway, I'll explain that later. Go on.
Yeah. So you kind of have to build around them, and you have to protect the supporting units, otherwise they're kind of just really not doing a whole lot other than holding up dudes.
Also, if you want the necromancers to keep up, they've got to be on horses. If they're on foot, the wraiths just run away.
Yeah, I was actually going to say that as well. Like, if you're going to do any rear charge shenanigans or whatever, you kind of need to be on a horse.
I'd consider, well, only because I put it in my list for one of my units. I've got a troop in there, and I took Diamond of Dragonkind.
Oh yeah, that would be alright.
So the old use the breath weapon and then be surged into a flank would
That's
be
pretty cool.
what I'd be aiming for.
Good idea.
Extra punch wouldn't go astray with these guys.
Yep. Anything that boosts their combat ability would be good.
I mean, they don't have a lot of attacks, but it's the options there.
If
Yeah,
you
I
went
wouldn't go elite
regiment,
or something because you're only going to roll like 1 or 2 ones. But
Unless you're a spoon.
yeah, I roll about
Yeah.
a billion ones.
But then you'll just roll more ones afterwards to the reroll, so why waste the points?
Yeah, good point.
I don't know what else I'd put on them.
Nah, that's
I
it.
don't know. I feel like they anvil in a similar way to larger infantry units, but slightly less effectively, especially if they have crushing strength because of their lower nerve.
Mm-hmm.
They hit like some of the bigger units in the list, something like, like the monstrous infantry, but slightly less effectively. The real beauty of them is that they fly. And against something that doesn't have crushing strength, they can have a real field day.
Yes, agreed.
Well, like, most of the scary things have Thunderous Charge and Crushing Strength 1, and Crushing Strength 1 does nothing to these guys, so that's, like, they're so tough.
It doubles
Anyway.
the chance of winning them.
Oh, yeah, but it's still 5 up. That's still unlikely, yeah.
True.
Alright, we'll move on to zombies. Another infantry
Zombie.
unit. Anyone want to do those? No?
Alright, so the regiment, horde, and these guys come in legions. So 60 troops for those who don't take legions. Speed 5, melee 5, defense 3, so meh in combat. But the attacks are at 15, 30, and 40. Fearless at 15, 22, 28, which is not bad. And the sweet spot here is the points. 80, 130, and 190. 190 for a legion.
That is so many zombies.
Shamble, and you can take undead animals. So pretty bare bones. Bodies on the board, this is what they are, and to hold people up.
Yep. Straightforward as it gets, really. Heaps of nerve for not many points. That's it in a nutshell.
The big footprint of the Legion, I think, is pretty cool. 40 attacks, give them something like extra crushing strength, and you could be surprising people.
Yeah, give them something to think about anyway, wouldn't it?
Yeah, isn't it only 20 points for Brewer's Strength?
It's about that, yeah. 20,
Brewer,
25
Brewer's
points.
Strength on them could be terrifying, actually. Like
30 points.
There you
30?
go.
Okay. Yeah, righto.
It's
They're
only 220.
they're still cheap.
They're so cheap, yeah.
Crystal, the gem of exploding, crystal pen of exploding, I think would be good on these guys.
Yep.
For sure.
Especially the Legion, because then it also tempts them to go for the flanks, and then you go, haha, surprise, boom. Yeah, that'd be fun. I'll take that. But I think you wouldn't need a whole lot of zombies. I wouldn't take 3 hordes, because then you've got no room for anything else.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts, like, Horde versus Legion? Like, because it's 20 extra models, but correct me if I'm wrong, they're behind the Horde? Like, it's...
Yeah, they go 6
still-
deep.
Yeah,
6 deep, 10
ranks of
wide.
10.
Mm.
So I feel like that isn't as big a disadvantage as you might imagine footprint-wide, because it
No.
doesn't actually increase their width.
So for 60 points, you get an extra 10 attacks and an extra 6 nerve.
It does put their nerve into, unlike the Horde, it puts the nerve into the region where even if 2 units are going against you, chances are they just won't have enough attacks to even make it possible to break you.
Yeah.
It's like a guaranteed hold.
But they also have a wider flank,
That's true. That is true.
which is why the crystal pendant of gotcha is
You're so-
good in my mind.
You also have to paint 20 more models for something that is
No, you
barely
just
any-
make some awesome unit fillers. You could do some really cool dioramas with these guys.
True.
swarms of
But
zombies
the
crawling
best
and
kind of
stuff.
dioramas are the ones that involve a heap of zombies.
Yes.
Could I just like buy a miniature Hulk and slap him on a piece of cardboard?
No. Cannot.
It's my zombie unit. 40 attacks. Come on, Bruce Banner's got more than that.
Hits on 5, no crushing strength. A Hulk with no crush?
Didn't say it was perfect. Fine.
Really drunk
Maybe it's
Hulk?
just human Bruce Banner.
Hulk smashed.
I feel like a diorama for these guys, if you really went to town, could be so freaking cool. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
the Mantic zombies are actually one of the few
Very
models
nice.
in the range, to my mind, that are just awesome because they all look like they're surging forward and groping at stuff. I feel like having like a cart in the middle of, and then like, you know, a circular kind of diorama with them all going up, and, you know, having a guy, like a witch hunter guy with like a, you know, torch on the cart or something trying to fend them off could just be amazing. Like, it looks so cool.
I saw a pretty cool work in progress on the Kings of War Fanatics Facebook page. Their unit filler, they had a small chapley type thing, a couple of zombies underneath it grasping up at the roof, and there's this poor dude hanging onto one of the spikes on the roof, trying to climb his way up,
Awesome.
which I thought looked pretty cool. So yeah, lots of opportunities for modelling there. But game terms, what do you think? All right, I think they're all right.
I think they're alright.
I think they're, yeah, really good.
Yeah.
I think that zombies or skellies, for flavour, it's just sort of a matter of choice. My gut feeling is that zombies are a little bit stronger
Mm-hmm.
because, yes, they have one worse defense, but just the enormous nerve value and stuff is pretty appealing.
Mm.
Yep.
And they're still only hitting on 5, so it's no worse than the Warriors.
No.
Yeah.
And in fact, they have more attacks.
Yes.
So, in fact, they're slightly more offensive than the skellies, oddly.
Phalanx might be alright on them.
Yeah. Rid of the Thunderous Charge. That'd be a good one.
Yeah, Phalanx couldn't be, yeah, not bad at all. I don't understand how that happens. Maybe, you know.
They just got spikes, or they're carrying people.
They just stand on each
spears.
other's shoulders.
Yeah.
Have like. Yeah, it's funny.
Alright, Spoon, take the mummies.
Yeah, I'll move on to the next one. So we're into Mummies, another infantry unit. These guys are speed 5, melee 4, no ranged attack, defense 5, attacks 10 and 12. They're fearless with /14/18 at 120 and 170 points. Did I say they come in troop and regiment?
They come in troop and regiment.
I did now.
You didn't know.
For that you get crushing strength 2, regeneration 5 up, and shambling.
So, good anvils, decent anvils, defense 5, regen 5.
They're weird in-betweeny units, these guys. Like, they're so in between say, a white and a skeleton. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. I mean, they got crushing too, so they can punch back, but they don't have a
they have very
huge
few
amount
attacks.
of attacks.
They have decent defense,
Decent nerve.
decent
Regeneration's
nerve.
good.
And regen.
Regen's great as long as you can survive for long enough. I feel like a regiment's a lot more tempting for that reason.
Yeah.
Yep.
Take advantage of
Get
regen.
the most out of get the most out of it.
Can you give them +1 regen or something?
No,
The
you
heroes
give
can.
them-
Oh, that's only heroes, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be going Brewer Courage for these ones. Gives them +1 to their nerve, so you go to /15 or 19 depending on your unit size.
Yeah,
sure
make
that
them do their
regen
job
kicks
as an
in.
anvil more.
Yep.
It's another anvil in a list
Yeah, but this is a
full
good
of
grindy
anvils.
anvil. Like, this anvil has teeth. And I feel like the regen's really cool. But
They can punch
what I
back.
learned in my one game is they can be popped immediately. And then you've got a gaping hole in your line. And it's...
Again, you were up against an Archfiend and Basusu, so there was Crushing Strength 2 and CS2 TC2, so it was just cutting through their defense.
Yeah, you got to remember that. And like, you look at the comparison between this and the unit we just did. For 20 points, you go from a regiment to a legion, and you get 10 extra nerve. Sure, your defense 3+ instead of 4+, but I feel like 3+ instead of 5+. But you're a lot more reliably going to stick around. And offense-wise, you're actually pretty similar. 40 attacks on 5+ to hit, versus 12 on 4+ with crushing strength 2 is, depends what you're attacking, of course, but it's more or less comparable.
And there's the footprint.
Yeah, much smaller footprint.
That is true. I mean, you can't underestimate the footprint. It's easy to look at things on paper and figure out what it looks like when you put it on the table.
Because a legion of zombies is quite unwieldy, but they just plonk them and just push them forward. And
you're also
hopefully they
unlocking
stop stuff.
3 units. You can't
That's
forget
right.
that.
And regen
Sort
farm
of
up is
one.
pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like, it helps heaps. Like, so nobody
It
will
is.
ever shoot these guys because they'll just shamble along and heal their way back.
That's true. Regen's pretty awesome as long as you can take lots of instances of not much damage instead of just one big impact,
Yeah.
which isn't exactly what an anvil's for.
Yeah.
So that's why there's
Saturated
such
fire
in
will
unit
get 'em.
for me. Yeah.
Yep. All good points. Nothing much more to say about them.
Nah.
So let's move over to the zombie trolls, the first large infantry in the list that we've got here. These guys, like standard large infantry, come in regiment and hordes. Speed 6, melee 4, defense 4, 9 and 18 attacks on the 2 units. Again, fearless, 15, 18 nerve. Points aren't too bad with 115 and 175. These are also crushing 2, and as you'd guess, shamble.
I find it
Not
weird.
bad.
I'm just going to say I find it weird that they don't have regen.
I think because unlike a living troll, where the flesh regenerates, if you're dead, it's going to
Rot and
I think
deteriorate.
yeah.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
I like in the flavor text underneath says turning a troll into a zombie improves their intelligence, but sadly at the expense of their ferocity and regenerating ability. I like that an undead troll is smarter than a living one.
It's too bad they don't have stupidity in this game. Missed opportunity.
Oh, that'd be so annoying.
Best special rule GW
I don't
ever came
know.
up with.
Stupidity forest made me
Ironically.
rage.
Yeah. So what do you think of these guys?
I think they're good in both unit sizes. I mean, Fearless 15, Fearless 18. It's only 3 point difference for your point upgrade there. I struggled to get these guys in my list from memory.
They're good, just medium size.
Yeah,
I think they compete with other things, like they compete with your mummies. They're going to compete with
that's one of the
any
things.
the infantry, really.
When I was really
Even
looking
Soul
at the
Reaver
Undead list,
infantry.
I'm like, my god, there's so much redundancy. So many things overlap. They've got multiple spheres of operation, and
That's
it
true.
really comes down to what niche do you want them. You need to have a solid idea about how you're going to use them in your list. Otherwise, and then
And even just preference. If you take a horde of skeleton warriors or a horde of zombies or a few mummies or some, revenants, and you want that anvil unit, then you could probably take any of those and just sort of like they're going to fulfill a similar role. It's sort of a matter of preference, really. And I feel like points wise, they balance out pretty nicely. So just do what you prefer.
Agreed. I think a couple of hordes won't go astray. 18 nerve, defense 4 is a bit meh. But they got a bit of punch with crushing 2.
Yeah, I think they suffer from the same thing as the mummies in that they don't really know whether to be an offensive unit or a defensive unit. And they compete directly I feel like if you just don't have enough points for whites, then you'd take zombie trolls. But otherwise, you'd take whites because they're like exactly the same, but just a bit heavier.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, with list riding in a Kings of War army, it's all about trying to find the points for what you want.
Absolutely. And at the end of the day, a horde for 175 that has a small footprint, unlike every other horde in the army, and hits pretty hard and unlocks those character slots. Not bad.
Yep. It's all about them unlocks.
Any magic items you put on them?
You could make them a bit more scary with the extra crushing.
You could, I wouldn't, because I feel like if you're going to do that, why not just have whites?
Because of the cost.
Yeah, but I mean, you pay points for the
a horde of whites is 235.
Yeah, so you're talking, if you gave them crushing strength, then it's only 30 points more for whites. Yeah, and you get a defense and a brutal. I don't know, I suppose you're right. That is fairly comparable the more I think about it, actually, but yeah.
Especially when you're looking for points.
But you're taking zombie trolls because you can't afford whites, so why are you then upgrading them? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep. For me, I'd skip these guys, but that's just me.
I actually don't mind them, due in part to the fact that I have some zombie ogre models. So I'm taking them.
So
they're
they're
not
great.
bad. They're not bad.
I wouldn't take them in regiments. I don't think they don't do anything for their cost that other guys don't do better.
Totally, yeah. No way. I would never take them in a regiment, personally.
But reasonable unlocks, it's not a bad unit. You're not going to waste points by taking them.
It's one of the cheapest ways for those 3 unlocks.
Yeah. Alright. Let's move over to the next large infantry. The werewolves. So these guys, when you're comparing, these guys have speed 9, which is massive.
So
They-
legit.
Yeah, they also hit quite well with 3 up. Defense is 5 up. 9 and 18 attacks like a standard large infantry. Nerve, average at 12, 14, 15, 17. And points, 160 and 245 for a horde. They've only got crushing 1, but they are nimble. So they don't shamble, so that's something you got to factor in.
I feel like these guys are worth every single point.
Yep.
Yeah.
These are amazing.
Horde's
You're
quite
playing an
expensive,
army that's
but-
very slow, and this gives you a small footprint, speed 9 unit with nimble. Yes, crushing strength 1 sucks, which is why I feel like you'd want to put another crushing strength on them, like almost every time, or some other kind of slightly hittier thing. But, God, so
you're
fast.
not running these guys in the front.
No, you're getting stuck into the flanks.
If you're getting them in the front, you're doing it wrong, because in the flank, the weight of attacks really doesn't really matter with the crushing 1.
How tall are they?
Their
Height 2.
Well, have you...
Okay, so they're the same height as Cav then.
Mhm.
So you could screen them even. And because you can conga charge in this game, like, you just screen them with revenants or something you don't give a shit about, and then suddenly the werewolf's in the face.
I don't think you'd be screening them with revenants because of the speed.
Yeah, you're just going to slow them
Werewolves
down.
don't shamble.
Well,
Revenants
screening
do.
them...
Oh, yeah, of course.
Screening them's not such a bad idea, though, with, whatever the case may be over the course of the game. Perhaps not right from the start, but at some point. Because of nimble, you can sort of rotate, charge past them,
Mm-hmm.
and that's pretty nice. So in an army that I feel like it's very easy to take a lot of units with a lot of wide frontage and a lot of units that just get in each other's way and don't move very fast because they shamble and they're hanging out in hordes or whatever. In my experience, I find that deploying undead is really difficult because they're so lacking in maneuverability, unless you take heaps of soul reavers and these guys. These guys are just such a godsend because nimble and speed 9, I mean, it's so nice.
Yeah, and even if you have them behind a couple of your own units, you can fang them out through because you can move through units fairly safely and go in for the next turn charge.
Unfortunately, they look like a direwolf that's had so many roids in their life that they're just, muscled up to the point where they could like bench press a truck, but their penis has shrunk down so much that all you can see is a big tufted muff.
Yeah. The
Very
Arctic
strange
werewolves need a bit
looking
more fur on them, I think.
That's what happens when you take roids. You gotta stay away from it. At least they don't skip leg day, right?
Roids make you nimble.
Magic items on these guys, I'd go brew haste every day of the week.
Make them faster, yeah.
Yeah, go to 10.
I agree with Huge. The extra crushing strength. Make them hittier.
Pathfinder works also if you're not taking Cav.
Soul Reaver Cav, yeah.
I don't think you'd ever take that unless you had no cav, as you say.
It's just so you can run through forests, make use of that at the double, and if you happen to charge, they're hitting on 3 still, not 4.
Also, something strange like Brew of Sharpness for the +1 to hit.
Hitting on 2s.
It is very expensive, so your horde at that point is 290. But hitting on 2s, but at that point they are by far the most reliable unit in your army. You know exactly the kind of damage that they're going to do.
And if they're getting in flanks like they should, they're just going to wipe units out without any issue.
Yeah. Although I always find like crushing strength 1 should do pretty much statistically exactly the same amount as +1 to hit, and it's 15 points less. So unless you're already crushing strength 2 or 3 or something, and then you're not getting much out of it, I'm not sure why you'd ever take the Brew of Sharpness over the Brew of Strength. Are you with me there?
Yeah.
I think it depends on what you're fighting and their defense.
That's right. So
because, if they're defense 6, having the extra 1 Yeah, it
Yeah, but
probably
even more
helps.
reason to take Brew of Strength in that case.
Yeah, yeah. But if they're low
If they're
defense
defense
army, the
3,
+1 to
yeah,
hit's
then the
probably
+1 to
better.
hit's better. +1 to hit does
Yeah.
always work, you're right, but...
Yeah, yeah. I think, honestly, it doesn't... It's... The cheaper one's probably the best choice.
Absolutely.
Just statistically over time.
But great little unit, the Weresies.
Yep.
Plus you get to like howl and stuff. Like for people who like making sound effects where they move dudes around, this is the army for you. You can groan, you can creak,
Make
you
trucker
can
noises.
howl. You can, all kinds of good stuff.
Screening with a trooper race could work as well. So if you've tooled up your werewolves to make them kill your machines, you need them to survive. So just a trooper race because they got speed 10 can keep up.
I don't know, that's pretty crazy though. Like, you don't mean whites, you mean wraiths. Yeah, sorry, getting confused.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, the whites. I'm like, why would you screen with a unit that's like literally a nuclear bomb, and then behind it you've got oh, okay, I guess it's Japan, but continue.
Also, with that tactic, the height
Yeah,
difference
it's a bit
works.
too soon, man.
Yeah, sorry.
That was only 7 years ago.
Yeah. Alright, where are we at next?
It's okay. Japanese people don't play war games. I know this because I used to live in Japan and no one would play with me.
We'll move into our last large infantry unit, the
You
whites.
cut the racism out of this, right? This isn't bad jokes.
If it's a bad joke and it doesn't go anywhere, I'll cut it out.
Alright, well...
Unless it's my joke.
You're not going to hear a lot from me in this cast then.
These guys come in regiments and hordes. Speed 6, melee 4, no ranged attack, defense 5,
What are
attacks
these?
9
Whites?
and 18.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah. Fearless at /14/17, and 155 points and 235 points. And these bad boys come with brutal, CS3, and shambling.
I feel like you can't talk about these guys or the zombie trolls without comparing them to one another because they're directly competing for the pretty much exact same role.
Yep.
And so for 60 points in the horde, you pick up one less nerve, weirdly, but you have +1 defense, +1 crushing strength, and brutal.
So what does brutal do again?
Adds 1 to your end.
Nerve roll.
Yeah.
Okay.
You should remember that. I took off one of your units because of it.
Yeah, I don't
But yeah, points shaving is why I wouldn't take these.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a tricky one. Like, if you want your monstrous infantry that can be surged, then those are your two options. Crushing strength 3 is pretty nice. Brutal's okay.
I'd take them just for puns. So I could sit there and be like, oh, that's a white. What's his favourite colour? White. No. Oh, come on.
Have you still got that?
Leave me and my dad jokes alone.
No.
Fine.
Would you call the champion Barry?
That's how you do it, Viv.
That's not a white. That's unacceptable. Anyway, moving on. I like them, but they're not Sorry the Cav, so now I'll pass.
I think they're too expensive.
I feel like they are slightly too expensive. Yeah, you're just 60 points, crushing strength, and a defense. I don't know. Maybe it's worth it. The defense is pretty huge.
Yeah.
It's pretty massive. And crushing strength 3 means 2+ on the everything. That's your unit that you take against defense 6, which the army actually otherwise struggles with a bit. There's not a lot of crushing strength out there. Obviously, it depends on what you take.
So on defense 6, they're wounding on 3s.
Yeah. I mean, defense 5 or 6, those really tough things that other things are going to struggle with.
Maybe give them vicious, reroll 1s to wound.
I think for whites to really work though, you're going to need an army with a lot of drops because they're not that redeployable. They need to be exactly where they need to be. Like if you have to go right in the middle of the board, and then they need to hunt the thing that they kind of need to hit. So you got to make sure you out deploy. So your list kind of has to revolve around them because otherwise, movement 6 per turn, unless you're going to be pumping out the surges, they're just going to.
Maybe you need that scrying gem.
Yeah.
Also, any piercing shooting will wreck them.
No more
Piercing
so than
shooting
other
will wreck
things.
anything. Though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
defense 5's decent.
Defense
Yeah,
5's
but
alright.
nerve 17 for a horde.
That's still that's normal.
That's average.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Yeah, I guess you're not going to do
That's
10 wounds.
Yeah, no, they're not bad defensively. I feel like they are your surge target. If you've got an army, And I think when you make an undead army, I'm increasingly realizing, only really now as we read through this, but how important it is that you have to think about what your surge targets are going to be. If you're going to take a bunch of surge characters, then have a few units that are really worth surging, and maybe some other units that don't have shambling, so they don't need to be surged, because you can't spread it out everywhere. And these guys are your surge guys, because they're the big damage. You know, if they flank anything, it's dead. You know, they're your major surge target.
Good can openers. So what items are you taking?
Vicious or Elite's really good.
Mm-hmm.
+1 to hit's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Start getting up close to, it'd be about 280 points for +1 to hit.
That's why you
those
just give them
guys.
elite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Start getting really expensive. I don't know. I don't know if I'd bother with too much on them, to be honest.
No, they're pretty good as is. They don't need a lot of seasoning.
I think the amount of points you have to spend on making sure they work in your list is already ridiculously high. You don't need to make them better than they already are.
Yeah.
Diminishing returns again.
Yep.
Alright. Move on.
Yep.
We'll move into War Engines. Who wants to do Balefire Catapult?
Viv.
I really like these guys, but I have no idea how they work. So I'm probably not the best person to do this because I didn't play with the catapults. But I know in my list, I'm
You can
thinking
read
about
them out
taking...
at least.
I'm happy to
Oh,
talk
yeah, okay, fair
catapult
enough.
if you want. Yeah, you read them
Well,
out, man.
They move 5, they hit on 5s, their defense 4, 1 attack, nerve 11, 100 points. Now, and this is where I don't know how these rules add on. So blast, d6 +2, indirect fire, piercing, reload, and vicious. And of course it shambles and stuff.
Yep.
It's got Piercing 2.
So,
Piercing 2.
yeah.
So I think these are decent war engines. Blast, d6 +2, and vicious. So if it hits, it's hitting on a 5-up. Indirect fire means you ignore cover.
Are these like exactly the same as sort of what you'd call the standard catapult, if you like?
Vicious.
Okay, so it wounds slightly better, and obviously it doesn't waver.
Yep.
Which doesn't matter that much, but
No,
I guess
'cause-
just if for like light amounts of shooting or something, maybe it won't waver, whatever.
So just quickly, they hit on 5s, and when they hit, they do d6 +2 hits.
Yeah, it's pretty intuitive. It does d6 +2 hits. You can't have cover for cover that's in the way. Is that the way it works?
Yep, that's right.
Spoon and Bensome? Yeah,
So-
like if they're in a forest or something, they get cover. Is that right? But not if it's like
Indirect
the forest
fire
is in between
removes that.
you.
Yeah, so you,
And
you
what
still
does
have to
reload mean?
see them. You can't move and shoot.
Oh, yeah, gotcha. So, but can you shamble shoot?
You can.
Okay. But where it gets me on these, I think you need 3 to make it worth it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
if you
because you're using your statistics where
if
you're
you
like,
want
well,
to
I want one
math
hit a
hammer, which
turn.
doesn't
Yes.
work, if you want to math hammer, you can take 3 to math hammer. Think, I'm gonna have 1 hit every turn.
Yeah.
But if
Yeah.
you're like
But,
me,
you know-
you just roll well, and you don't need to worry about that.
I kind of think that it's perfectly reasonable just taking 1 as well.
Yep.
And just
It's 100 points, and it makes people think, great, now I have to.
Yeah, and then
keep
maybe
an eye
they'll
out.
divert something that's worth more than that to go and get it. And maybe it won't do anything, but it will make them really think about where they're going to put their dragon and stuff like that, just in case it hits. Because d6 +2, piercing 2,
Vicious.
will vicious. That kicks some arses if it actually hits.
And it's got quite a large range too, compared to your normal archery.
Oh, what's its range?
So you're going up to 36. That's
Okay.
right?
That's a bit further than that.
36, 48, is it?
Yep.
There we go. Yeah.
48.
What's its height? How high can it
It's only height 1. It's just a
Oh,
war
but
machine.
it gives no... Yeah, okay, indirect fire. Doesn't care about that.
That's right.
Yeah, cool. Does that mean you could... Does it need line of sight?
It
Yeah,
does.
Still need line of
Okay.
sight.
Yeah, cool.
So it does care about, the height to some extent.
So you're not
Yeah.
really caring about the heights to the cav riding models, dragons, any large infantry, unless you're purposefully hiding them behind that stuff, which is how you should be playing. But that's also forcing your opponent to play like that and not put them where could be optimal.
Yeah, you're controlling the board with these things, or trying to.
Yeah. Because I feel like, especially in Undead, because you have a severe lack of ranged things that will actually scare giant flying monsters, 3 of
Exactly.
these would be amazing. Or you're going to have to take either fireballs or lightning bolts, otherwise you just can't deal with it.
Yeah, I think a few is pretty juicy option. It's a really difficult one. I was trying to fit them in my lists, and I found it quite tricky.
There's also an alternative to them, which I like a lot better, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Enslaved Guardian Archers, a horde of them with +1 to hit.
Uh-huh. We'll get to that when we get to our allies section
Allies.
towards the end.
Okay,
Yeah.
yep.
But, thanks for mentioning it. Give yourself a gold star. I think the shamble shoot is a bit pointless.
Yeah.
Because you can only shamble it forward, because if you turn, then you can't shoot it.
Well, unless some cheeky bugger puts something like 49 inches away from them and you just go,
Yeah.
Other than that.
I think you can turn it on the spot, but you
No.
suffer -1. No, reloads move.
That's right.
It's still a halt. You can still turn. I think you suffer -1 to hit. I'm pretty sure it is. But anyway, keep going and I'll find it.
Okie doke. War machines can't put items on them, so we'll just skip right over it. Agreed, it's all good.
Yeah.
Let's get into the characters. Our first one, what's his face? Revenant King.
Revenant King, Barry White, he the man. I'm going to read him. I love him. I think he's really good. I think
for it.
Viv's not going to like him much, but I like him.
Well, from my position of ignorance, I'm not really weighed down by conventional wisdom, so I think they're shit.
Yeah, I knew you would. That's all right. He is speed 5 because he doesn't have a horse, so give him a horse. Melee 4+, defense 5+, 5 attacks, 14/16 nerve, so it actually can be wavered, which is a bit weird.
But it's a decent nerf for a character.
Yeah, yeah, it's not bad. He's for some reason, while every other revenant is undead, a revenant king is alive. That's not explained in the fluff, as far as I know. But he is evidently alive because he doesn't have shambling and he does have 14/16, and he's 120 points. So for 120 points, you get your crushing strength 1, individual inspiring, and surge 6, which is totally awesome.
Yeah, and you can give him a pony for 20 points.
And I would give him a pony every day of the week. Get that surge where you need it.
Is there any way that you can get something so you can cast in combat?
No.
You're never in combat when this casting happens, unless you just charge.
Like if you charge someone
yeah.
and then you're in combat,
Yeah.
then you can't cast.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, no, you can't do that, unfortunately.
So how would you use him, Hugh?
One of two ways, or both. I really like one of these guys with the +1 defense armor, because when you're defense 6 and you have speed 8 and nerve 14/16, you can very reliably plonk your ass in front of something and disrupt them. So he becomes a really nice little bullet dodger. Yes, I know he's a lot of points for something that just blocks.
Just that.
But what he's used for is he runs along with your cavalry. Either he runs with, so I would run him with either Revenant cavalry or whites or anything else that hits hard and you can surge it. Run him up with them so he can keep up with them. He's got a very reliable surge when you only want 1 or 2 inches. And you would keep using him for his surge and as a support piece. And then if things get desperate, chuck him in front of the opponent's unit. And then when he inevitably holds, which is very likely to happen, you can then flank him with your unit that he's supporting. So he's a really good little support hero, I reckon.
The only thing is, if he takes a wound, in your next turn, you're not going to be able to surge anything. So you have to make sure that you've got that flank lined up for a charge.
That's true, exactly. It would be a desperation maneuver, I suppose.
Yeah.
But I have I think I've taken him in 2 or 3 games, and I've actually found myself doing that. And the other thing I'd use him for is just take him for 140 and go disrupt some shooting units, and be a opposite side of the board surge. So let's say you've got a bunch of infantry dudes wandering forwards, and they've got necromancers and that kind of jazz there to support them and surge them where necessary. Your Revenant King runs past the enemy lines and tries to just do 1 or 2 damage to their nasty shooting horde.
Yep, make sure they can't do anything.
Just to disrupt them.
Yep.
And then if your maneuvering is such that you need a surge on the other side of the enemy, that 12-inch bubble on the opposite side is actually really nice.
Yes. Just while we're here, I'm jumping down the bottom, to the next page, just so we can compare. With the role that you're describing this king, Do you
Yes.
think it would be better if you take a Cursed Pharaoh and give him the wings of Honey Maze so he can
Yes, I
fly
do.
speed 10?
Yes, I do. That is 100% better,
Mm,
but I would take both.
right.
Like, honestly, I think that you're right about the Cursed Pharaoh with the Wings of the Honey Maze. If you have the Wings of the Honey Maze on him, given that he can't be mounted,
Yeah.
he is basically hands down better than the Revenant King, and I would take him every day of the week.
But you can only
Although
take one
he is
flying
similar
pharaoh.
once you give the Revenant King the +1 defense item.
Yeah.
They're sort of similar point costs and stuff. And yeah, I would agree with you. I think the Cursed Pharaoh is better.
Mm.
But again, you can only have one, and maybe you really want a Vampire Lord jumping ahead again with that wings is really juicy on undead characters in general.
Yeah. Yep.
And I wouldn't bother with the Cursed Pharaoh without the wings nearly as much.
No, that's right.
You know?
But we'll get to that in a moment. Viv, why don't you like this guy?
Oh, look, in my list, he doesn't really have a spot. But the more and more I think about it, I'm like, he's almost a unit of race that doesn't fly. Like, he's pretty good in that respect. You could just put him in front of people, take the charge, know he's probably going to stay, and then, he's just an incredibly maneuverable anchor. I mean, yeah. But also, you can use him to make it so units can't... You can railroad with him, which is what I see him as being the
No
major
railroads
use.
in
You can't railroad
Cow.
in this game. This is a well-written game.
But let's just say you charge something in the face,
Yes.
and then he's right on the flank.
Yes.
Their only option is to charge the thing that's charged them in the face.
No, because you can rotate through enemy units.
Yes.
As long as
They
you
won't
don't
be
end in
charging,
them.
though.
You're allowed to It's not called wheeling, but you're allowed to rotate through enemy units as long as you end your movement not touching them.
Okay, so there's no point, really, railroading. Yeah,
No,
right.
railroading is balls.
Yes.
Rightly
Yeah,
so.
fair enough.
But he's exactly in between your necromancer and your vampire, because he doesn't fight particularly well, but you can throw his attacks in for lols. He doesn't. And I was saying before, I was actually saying this is sort of a negative with the mummies and the zombie trolls, but it's really nice for a character when you know you need surge in there. He doesn't have the flexibility of the casters, but he does have maneuverability, surge, and just reliability. He will reliably get surge off. He will reliably survive a charge.
Mm-hmm.
Decent little guy.
Yeah.
I reckon if I was going to take him, I'd take like 5. Almost like a Revenant King rodeo. And I'd go nuts. Because can you imagine like 5 individual characters just blocking you all day while the rest of your army just wrecks?
Yeah, it's probably not as good as you think, because you can overrun when you destroy individuals. And if you're up against anything, any sort of tin can, they'll just
Yeah.
munch through them. Like,
Yeah.
if you're versing Undead again and
I didn't know
Whites
you
there,
could overrun.
yeah, with individual units with the individual rule, you beat them in combat, you can overrun and have another round of combat if you touch something.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Because 120 points is super cheap. But anyway,
for that
move on.
thing, yeah.
I think this guy is probably more relevant to even smaller point games. So if you're playing 1,000 points, for example, and you can't afford a Vampire Lord, this is where I would find him more feasible. But
Yeah,
that's me.
That's fair.
Fair enough.
Decent character for low points games. Yep.
Yeah. Before we go any, have you done magic items on him? Anything else on him?
No, we're right.
+1 defense,
Yeah.
I think. Is the, yeah.
I screwed up on the Balefire Catapult. It's the reload. I think I'm still stuck in Warhammer World and thinking of mages where they get that free pivot to
Yeah, no free
do
pivot.
their magic. Yeah.
Halt is don't touch me.
Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
move on to the next one.
So we're essentially giving the Revenant King a birthday present, an undead worm.
It's got street cred.
Yeah, street cred. What? So speed 7 says speed 5, still hits the same at 4+, defense is the same at 5. You get more attacks, 9 instead of 5. Nerve gets bumped up considerably to 1820, and it's 190 points. His crushing strength goes up by 2 as well, so it's CS 3, still got Surge 6, still inspires, no longer individual.
Because he's a monster.
Yeah.
What's his footprint?
50
bucks
bucks
50.
It's only 50
What's
mil.
that? That's tiny.
You can give the worm, give him a winged worm, to give it speed 10 and fly. That's 45 extra points. So not a bad little flying chomper.
For
Pretty
70
good.
points, actually never even considered this guy really, just looking at him, because he is so in-betweeny, but for 70 points, you get a lot.
It's
You
a bit
really
more of a
do.
combat beast, yeah.
he becomes way more of a combat beast, crushing
Yeah.
strength 3 and virtually double the attacks, and then he has that flanking risk which he otherwise doesn't have.
Mm-hmm.
Still got Surge 6. He can still more or less keep up with the cavalry.
Mm-hmm.
He's all right, and he presents a pretty cool little modelling opportunity, I reckon.
Mm.
Definitely.
The Revenant King on the Undead Worm, I think if you can make him fly, that's way better than the Vampire Lord alternatives.
So 235 points for that configuration.
Yeah, it's so good.
Sorry, what was it? 235?
Yeah. For a
As
flying
opposed to
dude.
330 for a vampire on Undead Dragon.
Yeah.
Mm.
It is a lot cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, +1 defense is very tempting as well.
Mm.
You're vastly increasing his points, but I mean, he's super tough then.
I think while we're here and we're comparing characters, we'll discuss at the same time the vampire on Undead Dragon, since they're kind of similar roles. Comparing the two, like you said, 330 points for the vampire, and that's automatically built in fly speed 10.
So 95 points more effectively.
Yep. The vampire fights a little better with melee 3. The defense is the same at 5. It gets 1 more attack than the Revenant King with 10 attacks.
Mm-hmm.
The nerve drops by 1, so it's a 17-19 nerve. The special options, the dragon gets a breath 10 attack. The crushing's the same, inspiring's the same. Vampire's got life leech 2 instead of 1 for the Revenant King, and
Surge is actually half
Surge
as good.
is 3.
Surge 3 is very unreliable.
Mm.
I don't think a Vampire Lord, if you're using Surge on him, you've done something wrong.
I disagree. His Surge. You only want to Surge 1 inch a lot of the time.
Yeah, but I want him in combat. I want him charging.
He's also got the ability
That's true.
to take heal or lightning bolt for 10 or 20 points.
Yeah.
I think you're tooling him up too much then. If you've got all those items, what's his role?
I think you're a bit confused if you take it
Yeah.
all.
If you're paying 330 points though, I'd be putting the +1 defense on him every day of the week. 5+ is just not enough for a model that's that expensive.
Mm.
I only like the base Vampire Lord. I don't like his alternatives at all.
I like the Vampire and Undead Dragon. I think he's really good, but I actually didn't make this realization until now. But for 95 points less, I actually prefer the Revenant King on Flying Worm.
Absolutely.
I don't think I would be using the breath attack as much as I'd like, especially when you've got 9 crushing 3 attacks in the Revenant King.
Yeah, I think you use it once, don't you? You fly over, get into position, you breathe on someone, and then for basically the rest of the game you charge stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe once more if you're lucky, but then even then it's not going to do a huge amount.
Because the Revenant King costs less, do you
So
think it's
much
feasible that he doesn't take a defense 6 item and giving something else?
Yeah.
I think
better
Defense 6
combat
is just
ability?
exponentially better than Defense 5, though.
It is. It makes you, for me, what Defense 6 does more than anything else is it makes you next to immune to things that don't have crushing strength or piercing.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're just not even going to bother to attack you. Because, I mean,
And
with
I'd say,
Defense
like-
6, it's just meaningless attacking them most of the time.
So, this is probably my confirmation bias, but just through quickly looking, I feel like the majority of units in this game have either no crushing strength or crushing strength 1. So you've literally made him immune to the majority of the units in this game. But
Well,
most
not
people are power
literally.
gaming wankers. But but 6s is
Figuratively.
Yeah. Well, figuratively, yes.
But then you also got to factor in items and Banechant, which a lot of armies have access to, and allies.
Yes.
So if you're taking a balanced list, you are taking something that they can deal with heavily armored units.
And monstrous creatures
Yeah.
are crushing strength 2. Most armies have
A lot of
access to
them.
one.
Monstrous infantry, a lot of it has
Sorry,
CS2.
monstrous
Mhm.
infantry, I should be saying. And monsters themselves are 2 or 3.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, two's not that uncommon, I don't think. 2+.
Or a combination
which
of
takes
TC.
away from defense. When I was first reading the rules, I thought defense 6 just felt overpowered, and then playing it in a few games, I'm like, actually, not really. It's just more against the things that hit really hard are gonna still do a lot of damage to you.
Yeah.
The things that it's just the little weak things you become like you can just lord over like basic infantry and stuff when you're defense 6.
And if you really wanted a breath weapon, you could give him the Diadem of Dragonkind. That's if you felt like you were missing out on some breath weapon action. Otherwise, he's a decent flying choice.
Yeah, he's so like I had just skimmed over that entry before. He is so legit.
Mm.
Just Surge 6 and
Also,
Passion Strength
50
3.
mil
Bring it on.
footprint is so small.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was a mistake actually. Making monsters on 50 mils. I feel like that's like Alessio just penned that quickly, going, yeah, that's how big Warhammer models are, right? Because
What size would you make them though?
I'd make that
Maybe
like
75.
high elf dragon
50
size.
by 100 or 75 by 100 or something like that.
75
That's
by
what most of them
75 is alright.
75 by 75. 50
make
is
'em
just
square.
so small. Like it's really hard to fit any of the, and it's not just Games Workshop models. Like any of the bigger, fancy fantasy models that you can get from other companies out there. Like they're too
You
goddamn
need to be
big for a
creative
50
if you
mil.
want to keep them on a 50. Otherwise, I mean,
They
there,
start
there is
looking
that.
weird. There's like this big ass dragon like doing like a ballerina tippy toe on like a wee rock or something. It's a bit weird.
You can use the exceptional base size rule. So if you got something that you really want to use, you just bump up the base size.
Yeah, it does nothing but disadvantage you really.
Yeah.
Depends on what it is. If you've got a defense 6 thing, it's actually not so bad having a larger base size, so you can block things up easier.
Guess so. Yeah.
I guess base size really doesn't matter as much in Kings of War than it did in Warhammer. Because they can just go, I'm putting all the attacks on you anyway, regardless of your base size.
In terms of combat, yeah. But
Movement, it makes a big
maneuverability,
difference.
it's a big thing.
Yeah, and things are less maneuverable because you can't just march all the time and wheel willy-nilly and stuff. So
Yeah.
I find
All
that's
right.
pretty important.
Anyway,
tangents.
Undead Standard Bearer. Who's taking this while I get a drink?
Oh, I'll do it.
Right.
So this guy is a hero infantry unit, speed 5, melee 5 up, no ranged attack, defense 4, 1 attack, fearless, and a route value of 13 at 50 points. For that you get individual, inspiring, and shambling. He also has additional options to throw him on a horse for speed 8 at 15 points, which will turn him into a hero cav.
I feel like they totally dropped the ball on this guy.
What was that?
Well, let me take that back. In 1,000 points or less, grab him. Why not? One of them, 50 points, possibly worth it. Because for 35 points, you can have a Necromancer with Surge 8. I was about to say he's inspiring as well, but I've just read it. He's actually not. So I'm going to just eat my words now.
That's exactly what he's used for. This guy I would use just if you're stretched for inspiring options, I think. 50 point drop. You don't have to necessarily give him anything, and he's going to keep those little units hanging around that little bit longer.
Actually not a bad idea at all. I mean, if you don't have a Lich King, a heap of vampires, White Lord, most of those really cool characters that you're bound to have in your army that are all inspiring, if you don't have an abundance of those for some reason, then pick one up, cheap.
Yep. Especially if you're stretched for points. I mean, you could go down the path of whacking a Necromancer and giving him the Inspiring Talisman, which gives him Inspiring.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
But this guy at 50 points, you don't even have to give him anything and he's doing his job. Just wave the banner, keep the dudes around a little bit longer.
True that.
I think it is a good unit for 50 points.
Just for the inspiring. Yeah. Or give him hand grenades. I like hand grenades.
Yeah, you're a big fan of that.
Big fan of the hand grenades.
Yeah, I love the little... I'd give him a 5-point shooting weapon any day of the week. Those little things are so sweet. If you get cheeky and just get one extra wound on like a badly damaged unit, you're going, I'll just spend 5 points to kill your massive unit.
Yeah, just to push it over the edge. I also like healing charm on my standard bearers. So they're sitting behind the unit that you're waving the flag for and then heal.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's another good one, if you've got the points.
Yeah.
Alright.
Right.
I think he's pretty easy down.
Okay, now we're jumping back to the Cursed Pharaoh, because we were talking about him before. This guy is speed 5, melee 3, defense 6, built in. 5 attacks, 15, 17 nerve, and 145 points. He punches a bit harder than the Revenant King, with crushing strength 2. Still individual, still inspires. He has regen 5 though, and surge 6.
This guy's awesome. Like him, give him the wings.
The wings is just such an... Like, it just screams wings, doesn't it? I mean, speed 5 is the only disadvantage on his whole profile.
Yep.
Chuck some wings on him and all of a sudden you mitigate that disadvantage and he's just a baller.
Super survivable. I mean, regen 5 as well as life leech It's pretty
Yep.
good.
And if you're shooting at him, depending on what you're shooting at him with, he's -1 to hit for being individual.
Mm-hmm.
It's quite hard to remove off the board
Hmm.
if played correctly.
Yeah, but you're only taking one because you need the wings.
Yeah. Oh, they're pretty expensive anyway. 145. What's the wings worth? Like 30 or 40 points
Yeah,
or
something
something,
like
isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's good. Just give him the wings. Don't bother with anything else.
Good for disordering mages and archers. Maybe character snipe with crushing 2 can take out some low defense mages.
Would you really be throwing him that far ahead?
Well, I'm talking
If you've spent
turn
200
3 and 4.
points. Ah, okay. I was going to say, if you
You're not
spent
doing the first turn.
200 points, you want him to be hanging around your units to keep him alive and stuff. Oh,
Why
Good
the hell
unit.
not?
Yep. And
next.
Vampire Lord.
Oh,
Viv's, go on.
Well, here we go.
okay, so it's not a Blender Lord, but it'll do. It's pretty bloody close. I didn't realise by default their movement's 7. That's pretty
Yeah.
good. Giving them a horse gives them 1 extra movement and increases their size.
2.
Oh, 2. They go to 9.
Mhm.
Oh, okay. Oops. Anyway, hit on 3s, defense 6, 8 attacks. Their nerves a bit garbage at 14-16 for 220 points. They're pretty expensive, but crushing strength 2, inspiring life leech 2, and surge 3. I think what makes these guys shine is 360 charge arc. I just
Because
you
of
put
the
them in the
individual.
middle, and
Yep.
yeah, because of individual, and they can hunt things. Also, if they've got fly, you can be in a combat like in the middle of nowhere, and then suddenly you've just charged one of the enemy's characters.
Mm.
You know,
They have
if,
to
if
be,
they've left a character within 20 of you, you're gonna charge it.
and they have to see the character, so you're not going to be picking off dudes on foot.
Yeah, but they've got 360 sight, so
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, unless you're
It's
taking them on
kind of
hex, then-
easy. Yeah. I really like these guys, but they are kind of expensive, so you can't take too many of them. But again, there's certain things they get to take on by themselves, and I feel like they're just a really good unit to go hunt the back lines or give you that little bit of extra push. Also, if you really need to, they can be a roadblock, defense 6. You know, you could take a charge and not really care. Also, one thing that I find I really like about them is life leech 2 adds up so quickly because they're so maneuverable. You're constantly going to be charging, and very quickly you'll get to a point where if they're having units like giant squares on the battlefield, you know, you will get behind them and they won't be attacking back. So yeah, like you find that you can heal yourself up pretty quickly.
Are you giving them options? You giving them a heal 2 or lightning 3?
I think Surge 3 is garbage, so I reckon Healer 2 is the better choice. But then again, I don't think it matters. I wouldn't waste the points because you want to be charging things with them. If you're not, you're kind of not playing them right.
Yeah, I think especially heal 2 because 10 points is for something that isn't going to do a whole lot when
Also,
you could be
like,
attacking
why
things.
heal 2 when you can charge something in Life Leech 2? And like, there's a 100%, it's not 100, but it's pretty high chance you're going to do 2 wounds.
Yeah, crushing 2 is pretty good.
Yeah.
I chucked lightning bolt on mine once in the first game I played against Spoon because I thought, why not when I had 20 points left over.
It's pretty cool, a vampire flying about, shooting things with lightning.
Yeah, well, I just sort of like had a turn where I was sort of rotating or something and just zapped his dragon lord and killed it. So I was like, that was worth it. That was totally worth it.
Good spend.
Actually, a believer in a bit of lightning. Why not?
What are we giving him, or her, in terms of magic item? I mean, you could, like we've discussed.
Wings the honey
boots.
maze and +1 defense are both juicy.
It's already defense.
It's already
6.
defense 6.
Oh, whoops! I was looking at the dragon. Yes, you're right. Defense 6. Maybe not that one, but the wings are still good.
Can give him extra crushing, elite, brutal, vicious. All of those are good.
See, I reckon he's so good already that you're just reaching realms of diminishing returns.
No, I don't know that this is what diminishing returns necessarily means, though, man. Like,
how often?
I mean,
will
+1 to hit
he
when you got
be-
10 attacks is better than +1 to hit when you got 5. You know what I mean? Like, there's such a sometimes it's worth spending the extra points on the big unit.
Yeah, but playing. Oh yeah,
And this is coming from a person that is
a
notorious for running around with a vampire juiced up with
yeah.
every
Max.
possible point of magic item.
Like, if we were playing Warhammer, yeah, you give him all the bells and whistles because you want to go in and you need him to be reliable. In this game, you charge something in the flank and you're never going to get hit back. Like, so it doesn't matter as much. Also, the majority of things in the game, crushing 2 strength is going to be good enough. And you're never going to kill a unit with just the Vampire Lord. Like, 8 attacks is never going to do it, but it's not about that. It's just about weakening things.
So you have to
Or going in
combo
with something
charge.
else. Yeah, absolutely. But he can. He's 360 charge arcs. Ridiculous.
If you're going to give him nothing, maybe just like a blade of slashing or something is okay. Just like 5 points, reroll 1 die to hit something like that could be okay. You're probably going to miss at least one time each time. An extra hit is pretty nice when you've got crushing strength too. That's not a bad option.
So if you've got a couple of points spare, why not?
So I really...
One I'd consider... So, sorry, go.
No, you go. I'm trying to find it anyway.
One that I'd consider, if I wasn't running it on a Lich King or a Necromancer, is that extra Surge. Yes, I know you want him in combat, but bringing him to Surge 7 instead of Surge 3
True. Pretty good.
may help.
I feel like there's other things in your list that can surge. Like, if you're relying on surge, you want things that are not Vampire Lords doing it.
There may be occasions in the game, though, Viv, where he can't charge, or you don't want to charge the unit that's in front of him.
Yeah, maybe.
You
Because
may
there's
want
no
to put a
overruns
unit
in
in
this
front
game,
of that
though.
unit.
Like, that means that you've done that. Like, that's been your choice.
There is overruns.
Because he's individual
with
as well.
Targets,
So.
But how often does that happen?
More often than you think.
Yeah, right.
It's one I'd probably put on the Necromancers more than anything.
I think with your dedicated surges...
I think Boots of the Seven Leagues could be cool too.
Is that the Vanguard one? Yeah, that's
He
a good
doesn't
one.
shamble.
Especially if he's on a horse.
So is the Vanguard just a move, or is it a
double
charge?
But move at the double.
So you can just chuck him 14 inches up the board?
Yep, or
could
18.
catch some suckers by surprise. That one would be more tempted to use on if again in secret list situations. Still pretty nice.
I would actually put that on something that has Surge 12, so I can cheekily hide it behind some terrain where they can't shoot it off, and then he can just sit there and surge things forward. But yeah, I like that.
Alright, enough of that. Let's give him a pony. Pony with wings. Undead Pegasus with a vampire on top is 245 points. It gives you a speed 10 flying large cavalry character. He fights like a vampire should. Melee 3, defense 5, so not as defensive as the fella on foot. 8 attack still, nerves the same at 14-16. Crushing 2 still. Inspires no individual. Life Leech 2, Surge 3, and the same options.
So you're paying 25 points to lose a defense to fly. I think, unless you've already used the wings.
But you're also losing individual, so you can flank dudes.
And double or triple your attacks.
Yeah, okay.
I think more important than that is that you're paying 10 points more than the Revenant King on Flying Worm. And what are you getting for that?
I'd never take this guy. I'd never take the Undead Pegasus.
So comparing the two, he fights a bit better than the King, so its melee's better than one. By one
better
defense
melee,
is the
but
same.
one less attack. So.
One less attack. Nerve's not as good. The crushing
Nerve's
strength's
way
not as
worse.
good. Surge isn't as good. Life Leech is better by one.
Yeah, you don't get a lot. Your nerve is 4 higher on the worm.
Yeah.
For me, it's a skip, this one.
Especially
Absolutely.
with the, like Hugh just pointed out.
A vampire and a Pegasus is pretty cool, though. I mean, it's like a perfect mixture between evil and pretty.
Vivian, would you like an Undead Pegasus?
Probably not. Like, if I was gonna stick a horn on something, it wouldn't be a horse.
Okay. We'll leave that one where it lies.
We shall. We've kind of gone over the vampire on Undead Dragon. Did we want to go over it again?
Not really.
Not really.
No. Okay.
Give it the +1 defense every time if you're going to take it.
Yep. Sounds good.
For me.
Let's drop down to, how about Lycanus? This is the werewolf hero. Like the werewolf, speed 9, melee 3, defense 5, 5 attacks. 13-15 nerve with 145 points. He's large infantry hero. Crushing 2, inspiring only to werewolves though. And nimble like other werewolves. I think he's alright.
I don't rate him.
I reckon he's a very fast, small footprint hero that's good to run with, say, 2 hordes of werewolves.
Yep.
And the price is pretty good, 145.
What does that compare with the unit of the regiment? What's the price of that?
I think you get 3 for that.
Regiment is 160.
Oh, okay.
So the nerve is better on the Lycanus by 1, 13-15 instead of 12-14 of the regiment.
Yeah.
The attacks drop by 4, but his crushing goes up by 1, and again, inspiring.
I don't think he's too bad.
I like him.
I like him too.
He could block stuff. It's hard to underestimate the fact that you got a speed 9 thing with a really small footprint.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like a flyer without actually flying.
Yeah.
Um,
Crushing 2's good, like we've discussed.
Similar to the Revenant King, you could chuck an extra defense on him and block things with him.
Mm-hmm.
But unlike the Revenant King, you can maneuver him with nimble around something's rear, and then you're hitting it with 15 attacks at Crushing Strength 2. And that's pretty fucking scary. Even without giving a single upgrade, you don't have to give him anything to do that.
Yeah. Vanguard works well as well.
I mean, you could argue that you could do the same with a unit of werewolves. I feel like the best comparison for him in a way is an actual unit of werewolves, because for 15 points more, you get a regiment of them. You get 4 extra attacks on the werewolves. You get a bit of extra, slightly less nerve. So a few more attacks. You're basically swapping a few more attacks for an extra crushing strength and a lot more maneuverability. So if you're hitting a rear or a flank, he's golden.
Yep.
Great for picking off war machines and stray characters, I would say.
Yes. Because the smaller footprint helps, and he's large infantry as well, so he can see all the smaller fellas.
Yep. You could even, we mentioned it in the nature review too, Ben, you could use him to block units because he's not an individual.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's not bad for 145 points, I guess.
Why not?
I'd go very light on magic items if I was going to give him anything.
So if he's not an individual, that means he can only charge things in his front arc, right?
Yes, which is why you need to set it up in your nimble.
Yeah, I don't want heroes to make me think.
You're playing the wrong faction then, mate.
Really?
Just play ogres.
No.
Ogre.
Don't need more ogres on the field. Don't compete with me. We won't get into legendary heroes just yet. How about Hugh? You can take the Lich King.
Lich King, alright. I love the Lich King. He is legit.
Lychee King.
Similar to the Necromancer, only he's like a more competent fruit salesman. He's got I feel like this is again one of those ones you got to compare him side by side, because you're looking at 60 extra points. He's got he's 145 points, speed 5, melee 5 plus, defense 4 plus, 1 attack, 14/16 nerve, which is pretty high for a wizard on foot. He picks up individual, inspiring, regen, and surge. Regen's a bit of a weird one actually for a wizard again, but he could actually conceivably chuck himself in front of something and survive if it's not too killy. Unlike virtually every other wizard in the game, I'd suggest. Would you agree with that?
I really like the regen.
With a high nerve, yeah.
If somebody's shooting at you, you can take a round of shooting, hide behind something, and
heal back
the
up.
regen's healing you back up. And because he's nerve...
Especially if he has heal himself, he's very hard to remove with shooting.
Nerve 14/16 is so much better than the Necromancer, because the Necromancer takes a stray hit and you're gonna lose him. The Lich King can take that hit and come back from it.
I don't think you can heal yourself though.
No, it's the regen though.
Oh, you can't? It's a shooting thing.
You can't shoot yourself.
Of course, yeah. He's just very versatile caster. I mean, coming with...
What about his options?
Surge 12 is lovely, that he comes with standard. I think you're rarely going to want to swap that out, but you do have the option too. You got heal 6 for 20 points, or you can replace Surge for free. I made the mistake of doing that in the last game and constantly regretted not having Surge. And then the other guy that did have Surge, I kept wishing he had heal. So I'm going to say, unless you spread it out really nicely and deploy better than I did, perhaps both is better than one or the other. I don't know. You just want Surge when you've got the option there.
Also comes down to your points.
Yeah,
of course. Lightning Bolt 5 for 35 points is very good in an army that's craving ways of reaching out and touching stuff. You're very reliably going to put a couple of damage on stuff with that, and that forces the nerve check, which is what you want. Banechant 3 is a reasonably reliable Banechant, which again is really good in an army that doesn't have a lot of crushing strength. You make your killy stuff killier, you make your crappy stuff like zombies suddenly become significantly killier, really. If you've got 40 attacks or something out of a legion, then that's the business. You can chuck him on a horse, which is just your army list, really. Like if you're running him alongside a bunch of Revenant cavalry, then do that. If you're walking along a bunch of zombies, then don't. I'd suggest,
Yep.
Although, as Viv said before, he can cop a few shots from shooting, so maybe it's worth just putting him on the cavalry anyway, so that you can go, shoot him if you want, but he's going to regen.
Not only that,
And he
if he's sitting behind your infantry on a horse anyway, they're going to be -1 to hit him, -2 to hit him.
And yeah, because of individual and then
still
cover.
individual. Yeah. So actually, come to think of it, maybe a horse is a pretty good option a lot of the time. But it depends. If you're giving him heaps of spells, I like to take him with a lot of flexibility, like a lot of spells. You can just take him base for Surge 12, and he's not bad at all. Thing is, for me, what I found in the last couple of games I've played with him, because I've taken him in every game, if you don't have anything really worth surging, and often if you're moving up, what people forget with surge is they go, oh, we'll just chuck it, surge anything all the time, and then occasionally we'll surge into a flank or something at the right moment. I find that in practice you use surge almost exclusively for getting a charge in, because if you're advancing in one wide front, the last thing you want to do is send 1 or 2 units significantly forward of the others. If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a bit hard to describe.
It
There's
makes them
certain
stick out
where you
and
could.
then easier to be charged.
Yeah, you don't want to just expose someone's flank for no reason. Like, you're not going to charge it, cast it turn 1 on your skellies and turn 2 on your, zombies or something. Like, it's just not going to happen that way. So having a way to reach out and touch someone with lightning bolt, and that's an expensive upgrade, I think is really worthwhile. Bane Chant's really good for flexibility, so is heal. So I like to give him a lot of points of spells, and because I like to do that, I don't tend to give him anything else.
I have someone I take over this guy, but I don't know if we're talking about him yet.
No.
Not yet.
He needs to go. Yeah, don't worry.
Surge 12, good for getting through terrain as well. So if you got knights stuck in a river, that'll be good. Keep note good.
Oh, don't even start.
But yeah, he's a decent caster. How about we compare him with Necromancer right now?
Pick it out.
Necromancer's cheap and cheerful.
Same stats essentially, except for the nerve being 10-12 instead of 14-16. And like you described, Hugh 60 points less, so he's 85. Individual and Surge 8 is what he comes with, and you give him the options to heal 3 for 15 points or swap it out. Only Lightning Bolt 3 for 20, Bane Chant 2, and pop in on a pony for 15 points. So like the Lich King, but reduced. All the spells are cut in half.
That's right.
Nice cheap surges or heals.
Yeah. Can't go wrong.
Magic items on either of these guys.
The surge, extra surge.
If you need to surge, extra surge is good.
It brings him up to
Yeah,
surge
I don't
16.
really like extra surge, actually.
On one more than the other?
I don't know.
It's 40 points for 4 extra surge.
Surge 16?
Again, it depends what you're using surge for. If you really want to bolt up the board, then sure. But the thing is, in a game all about maneuverability, you don't want to move somewhere between 1 and 16 inches, because you don't know where the hell you're going to end up.
Yeah.
You're going to get
It's a big
disrupted.
range.
It seems like just a nub play to be like, I'm just going to surge this thing with surge 16 and see what happens.
Yeah, don't just
Because the other thing
surge
is
the hell of it.
You can't, if you say roll 10 out of 16, for example, you can't choose to move it like 6. You have to move it the whole
distance.
whatever you roll.
It's got to have a roll
So
if you're going to do it.
So unreliable. Like, it just seems like
You could catch people off
charging forward
guard.
and putting your dick in the wind to me.
Yeah,
You could catch people off guard,
like
or
if
you
you've
could
got-
fluff it by a few inches, or you could do like what I did in the last game and roll 12 surge dice and get none.
Yeah.
In that game. Who was that against? I can't remember. It wasn't the last game, but it can happen.
But if you've got a couple of casters, you might be able to catch someone off by getting them in the flank from a really long surge.
I feel like changing Surge 3 to Surge 7 is better than changing Surge 12 to Surge 16, in my opinion.
I think it's, if you're taking both, that's definitely the case, is because you have 2 reliable surges instead of
Just
one
one.
massive one.
Yeah, I'd agree there.
I mean, not that Surge 8 is bad, but because that's probably all you need. But like you said, if you want to run across the board because it's fun, you can do that. It might also be good to get across the line for invade or
grab an objective in the
But-
last turn.
Necromancer's nerve is so low. They always disappear if they get hit, and
You
you've got
need
to be
to
ready for
protect
that.
them.
Yeah. But sometimes you can't. Like, flying things that shoot magic missiles, I don't give a shit about what you intend.
That's why you got to
True
take them
that.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Both good options.
Mhm.
All right, let's get into the big wigs. Who can take this one? Hand up. All right, Viv, off you go.
Oh wait, okay,
First
yes,
one.
it's my time to shine. Okay, I imagine
Lady.
this guy is
We're going
like...
the lady.
Oh, what? Oh. No, I wanted to do Nicolas Cage.
No. Lady Ilona? Is that an
Alright, fine.
ILONA?
She's a vampire lord, pretty much, but is a lot more expensive and comes with every spell. Well, pretty much every spell, except for Bane Chant, I think. Also, I have no idea what level Eternal does. But in terms of stats, she has 1 extra movement, and that's pretty much the only thing that changes, except for an extra crushing strength, and yeah, like every spell under the sun.
So defense 6 still, 8 attack still, 14, 16 nerve, so
Yeah,
280 points. Crushing 3, heal 3, individual inspiring life leech 2, lightning 3, surge 3, and the promise of love eternal is enemy heroes attacking her receive neg 1 to hit in melee.
That's okay, but I feel like people won't really
It's a lot of
charge
points.
her.
That is
and
a lot of points.
I would just take a normal vampire. I don't see the point of her. Because all of those spells are garbage, and again, that's not what you want to do with her.
No.
I feel like she's decent. Like, if you just add up what you get for those points,
It's a crushing 3
it's
is
nothing amazing.
pretty
but
good.
It's not bad.
She's not getting shot off because of individual and defense 6.
Yeah.
Still inspires for anyone who's running up for like Cav because she's speed 8.
Yeah.
You're
I would,
probably going to lightning something if you can't charge it.
yeah, I'd use her to charge things, and then that makes pretty much her spells useless. So I just don't see... It comes down to my philosophy with the Vampire Lord.
Yeah, for 60 points, you get your speed, you get a crushing strength, and maybe you'll chuck out a lightning bolt every now and again.
And neg 1 to hit in combat.
And neg 1 to
From
hit against other heroes, if they're silly enough to get charged by you. Which actually, they don't necessarily even need to be that silly with speed 8.
Oh, no. She will always charge them. The problem is, they're not going to charge you back. They're just going to walk away.
So they're not charging anything else.
Not necessarily. They got 360 charge arc. If you're charging another hero,
so
they
they can-
probably got individual. They just charge something
So they'd
else.
have to do something out the side because they can't see at the front.
Yes, but they can see behind them. They can go anywhere else, basically. They can just walk away. So unless you kill them, which you're not going to with 8 attacks, yeah.
What you're failing to factor in, though, is that she's like a wicked vampire female heroine, and she's like,
Mincing foes.
yeah, she's got like a little bit of minor witchy poo going on, but mainly she's just a mad beatstick cow,
I think she's too expensive for my lists at 280, but it's not something I'd throw in the bin because speed 8, crushing 3, it's a very small footprint individual
If you give the
character.
Vampire Lord heal and lightning bolt to bring her in line, then she's 30 points more
for an extra crushing
for crushing
And one
and a
extra movement.
speed
and neg 1.
and 1 extra heal and neg 1. It's actually not bad for 30 points.
Good value.
So
Yeah.
essentially, if you've got the extra...
If you want to spend the
Points.
extra
If you
points.
wanted to give him a few, basically, if you're taking a Vampire Lord and you find for some reason you've given them heal and lightning bolt, which you might do, it's not that many points.
If you go on a cast.
Say you do
army.
it, then you probably should just go Lady Ilona because it's just a slightly better one.
And I could see an army made up like a fairly gun-heavy list, and then this chick has got a bit of bite to her as well, so once they come close you can thing out front and knock some heads.
Yeah, Crushing Strength 3 does make a significant difference.
She's pretty potent.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you like her, take her. She's not bad value.
Yeah.
But just wouldn't probably see her in most lists.
Alright, Viv,
Oh my
I shall
God.
let you reign.
So picture Nicolas Cage, who can like shoot fireballs from his hands.
But
That's pretty
Nicolas
much this
Cage
guy.
has a face.
No.
Unless
no,
in that movie Face
no,
Off?
Yes.
Is that what you're talking?
We don't know if it's John Travolta.
Morgoth the Face Off.
Could be both. Anyway, this guy is by far my favourite. I think I'm going to struggle not to include him in every list. He is ridiculously tough.
He always just likes the most expensive.
Yes, he
value
No,
does.
he's cheaper than
the smallest army.
Lady Pretend Isabella. Like, Morgoth the Faceless is just solid. He is a toolbox. He fulfills the Kairos role. And that's what I was thinking when I saw him. Like, my god, this is Kairos, but better, because he's an
Except
infantry
that
model.
Kairos is a better caster, because you can only cast one spell.
Yeah, I know, but you've still got the options, which I find amazing. So, like, if you don't need to surge shit, fine, fireball something. If you don't need to fireball something, lightning bolt it. He's very inspiring as well, and he flies. So, you can fly him around everywhere, and pretty much everything in your army within a flank is going to have Inspiring, which is pretty solid. He's super hard to kill. Nerve 19, Defense 6, Regen 5. Like, you're not killing him that easy. Also, if you do ever charge him, he's flying. He's just going to bug out and disappear. And I just think the toolbox is just so good. And also, because Undead suffer with so much chaff, so much like big flying gribblies, Lightning Bolt 6 will keep them honest. Fireball 15 will keep units honest. Like, the flying bird chaff will just disappear. And that's what you need when you're running 2 units of 10 Soul Reaver Cav.
When you're running
chaff
too expensive
to bugger off. And, like, could you imagine fighting Soul Reaver chaff with this guy heal 6ing, like, every turn? Like, he's just, yeah, wow. I just saw him and I'm like, my god, this guy is everything I wanted. Because could you imagine buffing up a Lich King to that? It would be 1 billion points and not be as good.
I'll just factor in the numbers now. Okay, let's have a look here.
So Banechant 4, Fireball 15, Fly, Heal 6.
So I've just given the Lich King all the bells and whistles, and he comes at 240 points. So that's Surge 12, Heal 6, Lightning 5, Banechant 3, and On a Pony for Speed 8.
Yeah, okay, so he's worse in every way, and yeah, they're not even comparable.
So the Surge is the same. They've still got Regen. Lightning goes down by 1, Heal goes down by... the Heal's the same. Banechant goes down by 1, which I don't think is a bad thing because it's probably going to go off anyway.
Yeah. What Fireball does the guy get?
Doesn't need it.
No.
Doesn't have it.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
Fireball's the one that you're probably going to almost never cast.
Really? Fireball 15, and if you hitting, like, Defense 3, which most chaff is, I feel like Fireball 15 is way more reliable than Lightning Bolt 6.
He's a very expensive chaff chaser.
I think that but that's not his only role. At the first turn or two, yeah, maybe. But in the other turns, it's all about that Surge 12, Heal 6. And the Banechant if you need it. Also, his points that they're not going to kill. So if you have to get him across a line, you know he's going to survive. They're never going to catch him. There'll be enough terrain for you to hide him from just about anything. Like, his points denial at the same time. I just see him as an amazing investment.
The points denial only works for kill, because objective ones he can't claim, being an individual.
He can still get across the line, though, can't he? For that get across the line one, where you got points to survive.
Invade.
Yeah.
Yeah, he counts in that.
I think you're forgetting one of his special rules too. Touch of Darkness is actually
Wait, I can't
good.
see that in my thing. I have no
So
idea.
25 points, it gives regen 5 to something.
Oh,
that is
what?
pretty freaking good.
Okay,
Yeah.
wow. I have the points for that.
So
in my
you'd be
list.
you'd be
I'm gonna
chucking
take
that on your zombie legion.
I'll
Pretty
be
quick.
chucking that
Or
on my
his
Soul
Soul
Reaver
Reaver
Cav.
Yeah.
Try and push that around when I'm healing it for 6 and it's got regen 5. Oh.
I think he just had an accident in his pants.
Yeah, wow. And just
Need
again,
a shower
toolbox.
after this move.
Toolbox, like even just bane chanting wraiths, for example, if they're already in combat, you know, giving them the 2 pen instead of 1 makes a big difference.
Are you taking any other casters?
Yes,
Alongside
I
Nova?
am taking 2 necromancers on horsies.
It's a lot of magic.
It sure is, but I'll explain my philosophy when it comes down to the list.
Alright, so he's a very expensive, very versatile flying caster. Very hard to take off
Yeah,
unless you're
Nerve 19
smart.
is like, it's higher than every unit in my army. He is the toughest thing in my list. It's ridiculous. And he's
Yeah,
an
you
infantry
still-
model. He's a single
I don't think
infantry
you
model.
want to throw him into combat or
But
even
he totally
try and
could.
give them the option.
He could be an emergency redirector because he's got regen 5, defense 6, 19 nerve. He could just run into something and then be okay, cool, and then fly away. Just move 20
A can
somewhere.
opener could take him out in one
Yeah,
turn.
I don't think I'd be redirecting whites with him.
Or just any smaller unit to do 1 wound on him. He flies off, gets out of the way, can't cast anything. You have to wait for the regen to take effect.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, like, it's if I'm redirecting it with him, it's a desperate situation.
I think that's it.
Yep.
I think you summed him up pretty well. He's a lot of points. He's never going to get his points back, but he's very likely to retain them and support your army while he's at it, which is pretty nice.
Alright, with the army down, do you think there are any allies from other neutral or evil armies that you'd be taking to
Absolutely.
help out? Apart from the obligatory ogres with +1 or Empire of Dust equivalent.
Well, if we're talking about the enslaved guardian archers,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or the
that's
ogre
equivalent.
shooters. Same thing.
I'd take those over the 3 catapults any day of the week. They're more reliable, they do more damage, and they've got cool range. And then when anything does reach them in combat, they're going to punch it in the head. So yeah, I just love them.
Yeah, they are a good unit.
Yeah.
I think you're so spoiled for choice in this army. It's insane.
A lot of options.
Way too many options.
Do you mean in the mercenaries or in the actual undead list?
The whole undead list.
I feel like the undead list, everything does the same. I feel like there's not much variety, so I actually am looking at other lists so I can mix it up a bit. I hate to say it, but a lot of the stuff's the same. It really is. Like, even
How
my
so?
legendary caster is just a caster with the same spells. And, like, the majority of the units overlap.
You'll get used to that in Kings of War pretty quickly, though, man. It's about the subtle differences.
It's all about
there's,
subtlety.
Yeah.
most things feel quite similar and
Yeah.
occasionally bland. It's kind of the biggest disadvantage of the game.
Yeah. But, like, jumping into other armies is when I love that idea. I just think it brings some really nice flavour to the somewhat bland undead roster.
Is it just the big archers that you're bringing
Oh,
along?
no, you could take just about anything. I had a really good look at the Night Stalkers and then, like, all of their monsters and stuff. And I was even thinking, like, the Portal of Despair sounds cool. Like,
The
there's
undead
so
don't
many.
have any monsters.
Yeah, none at all. And then I was looking at the reanimated behemoth and stuff, but then I can't really fit it in my list, so I kind of just shied away from it. The Soul Snare's really cool, but again, I'm taking a ridiculous caster, so I don't really need it.
You'd have to buy a unit to unlock either of those.
Yeah, I'd take the
anyway.
archers, the Guardian Archers.
Yeah, Soul Snare you can't take.
It's a living legend,
Yeah.
isn't it? Yeah.
So you can't take them as allies.
Okay, I didn't know that. I just saw War Engine.
No. Yeah, it's hard pressed. I mean, monsters because they don't have any. They've got cheap units, so you don't need chaff. They've got some powerful cavalry. Not a lot in the way of large infantry, but do you want to give up those werewolves or wights?
Probably not. I think just reliable shooting is just about the only thing that the army lacks. And in fact, the shooting they have is not bad. It's just cheap and unreliable. But if you need, just take more of it.
And you shouldn't have too much of a problem with flyers, like not being able to hit them because you can just change face and surge.
True that.
Anyone else you can zip about and they can't get you.
Yeah.
Indeed.
It's the big demon things, or a dragon, is...
No, you just got to play better Viv.
No. I reckon Undead really struggle
don't
against,
give me the,
especially multiple flying
Horde
demons.
archers.
Just, yeah, I reckon some shooting would definitely help there, or a couple of lightning bolts. But anyway.
Yeah. Alright, now with that out of the way, how about we get to the lists. So some example lists that each of us have written. I don't know if they're going to be similar or not. It'll be curious to see if it is. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first, why not?
Go for it.
Alright, this is my 2000 point undead list. So I started with a horde of scaly archers, considered +1 to hit on them, but too many points. Then I move on to 2 troops of wraiths, one with the diadem of dragonkind.
Diadem.
Sorry.
Yep.
That's the one. Then I've got a regiment of mummies with brew of courage. I'm sorry, I'm just scrolling down on this crappy
You and your
laptop.
scrolling.
I've gone too far.
We've ruined it.
I've just
Start
gone
again.
all dark on this shit because I've been busy writing up a third list. While you guys are into-
I find after we've discussed all the entries in depth, I want to
Just
change
makes-
my list.
Oh, it makes you want to think so much more about it, doesn't it?
It's great. Love it.
Next unit after the mummies is a horde of werewolves, and I went brew of haste for that speed 10.
Mm-hmm.
Then I've got a regiment of Soul Reaver Cavalry with the Caterpillar Potion.
Yep.
Then I've got a regiment of Revenant Cavalry with Blade of Slashing because I had an extra 5 points.
Mm.
And then I've got a bit more shooting, so I went to Balefire Catapults, and I was thinking of sitting these around about my skeleton archers somewhere, just to pop some wounds off something, hopefully, if I can manage to hit. And then I went the Revenant King on the Undead Worm.
Yeah, he is a good choice.
He's so legit.
He was in my first list as well.
Yeah, with the wings, of course.
Because you could seriously take like 5 of them.
You need to unlock them.
Yeah, I know, but you could.
Yeah, you got to unlock them first.
Just the Undead Air Force.
Yeah.
Like, wow.
Shh, you're ruining
I-
my
Okay.
list.
Sorry.
I didn't take any items on this guy, mainly because I didn't have points.
That's a good
I
reason.
don't know whether giving him 6 defense, not 6 up defense, was worth the points anyway. I don't know. I'd have to play it a couple of times and figure it out.
Yeah.
My other 2 characters, I've got an Undead Army Standard Bearer, which would be sitting behind my Skellies and near my Balefire Catapults and Mummies. And then I had a Necromancer on a horse, which was part of one of my flanking forces, which was the, I believe he was with the one of the Wraiths units, the one without the Breath Weapon and the Soul Reaver Cav, just keeping the Wraiths moving.
Yeah.
Whereas the other Wraiths were surged by the Revenant. Is it the Revenant King or whatever his name is? Yeah, on the Undead Worm. Yeah. Anyway, that's my list.
Not bad.
Nice, pretty good balance.
Hugh, have you finished?
Yes, I have.
Brilliant.
Which one should I hit you with first? All right, I'm going to hit you with my generic balanced one first, which I don't want to discuss too much, but I'm just going to run through it. This is a list that I will be playing with in the next battle, due in no small part to the fact that I have these models. So this is sort of my Warhammer army taken into this version, basically, this game. It's a much better game.
Okay.
I have my Skeleton Spearman Horde, my Zombie Trolls Horde, with the Brewer Strength. I have a Ghouls Regiment, a Skeleton Archers Regiment, a Revenant Cavalry Regiment, a Soul Reaver Cavalry Regiment with the Caterpillar, 2 Catapults, a Vampire Lord with Pretty Wings, a Revenant King with a mount and the extra armor.
Yep.
A Lich King with heal and Banechant, and a Necromancer with heal and Banechant, and well, they both have Surge, of course.
Yeah.
So it's sort of a one of everything list. The only copy in the whole list is 2 Catapults, and there's not much point in talking too much about it because it's a bit boring, but it is fun to play and flexible.
Nice and varied. Yep.
Very varied. It's got a bit of chaff, a bit of hard defense, bit of shooting, bit of everything really.
Yeah.
The list I just wrote for lolsies is quite simple.
Yeah.
I've got a Zombie Legion with a Warbow, because 5 points.
Yeah.
I had 2 Skeleton Archer Regiments to chill at the back, pop out a few wounds.
I think it's quite amusing having a legion of zombies and then just one dude in the middle with a bow.
Yeah, I like it. Just they're like, and then one guy's just like...
Or maybe that just reflects that they've all got missile weapons, but they're that shit.
Yeah, that only one of them can potentially hit.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got a Skeleton Archer Regiment ×2, which just chill in the back and get objectives, theoretically. And then you have 5 Revenant Kings on worms, 3 of which fly. I thought rather than giving them all fly, I'd save a bit of points and have a couple of crawlers, and then 3 flyers. I think it'd be fun giving them all kinds of different mounts. I've got a Cursed Pharaoh with a Honey Wings, and then a Horde of Wights. So this one has 5 monsters and 1 guy that's basically a monster on foot. You got a tiny bit of shooting. You got your massive Legion anvil to walk up the middle, and you've got your impact with the Wights.
I would like to see that one.
It sounds. It'd be fun. I mean, you've got 5 kings. It is Hero Hammer. You got 5 kings that can go into things and eat things for breakfast. I think the Wights is kind of key because even though we were just talking about how maybe they're not worth their points, I think in this list, when you've got 36 Surge,
Zing.
36 Surge floating about, which is incredibly mobile Surge.
You can line them up.
You can just sort of point them at something and go, charge! and just launch them, 18 inches across the board into something.
That'd be great.
And that just appeals to me.
I don't know how the hell. How do most people deal with that? Like maybe a shooting heavy list would be okay, but wow.
Against flyers.
No, the mass character. I don't know.
Well, I felt like that was the most efficient. I mean, it's got 6 characters, and they all have 5 of them have a nerve of 20, and the other one is sitting on 18 or something.
But they're either surging or being in combat, so you can shoot them off.
Yeah, They're all pretty
Yeah,
high
but they're
defense and super high nerve.
They're very fast.
Yeah.
3 out of 5 of them. Sorry, 4 out of 6 of them fly.
Mm.
The other ones are fast anyway. So turn 2, you've got 1 turn to deal with them. Really, 2 turns if you go second.
Would you be getting him into combat as fast as you could?
Yeah, I'd be combo charging a unit.
Mhm.
And then my zombies would be walking up the middle. My skellies would be taking in objectives and probably being ignored. And then I'd be surging the whites and the zombies if necessary into whatever the hell I saw fit. I mean, even the zombies, if let's say they've turned their units to face the threats of a million flying Revenant Kings swarming and circling them, and they've turned their units a bit, and then all of a sudden the zombies move up 20 odd inches
Mm.
and hit something in the flank with 80 attacks, that's pretty nasty.
Mm. Yes.
And a warbow, just in case.
Warbows. The dude who was in the wrong unit.
Kind of wishing I'd given him the potion of strength, actually, because that would be pretty nice.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah. So there you go. That's the 2 extremes I've given you there, guys. Thank you. You can thank me later, listeners. You've got a nice balanced list, and you've got a balls to the wall insane list, which could actually work pretty well, I reckon.
Yeah, I think so. Against most armies, I think you'll come across some that can just deal with flyers. Anything with breath or magic should be able to take it off fairly easily.
Yeah, true. They're still defense 5 and nerve 20, so you still got to do a lot to them.
Yeah.
You're right.
I'm just imagining how it would play and then where things would be, and the field would be fairly open, so you'd either have to be in... Because if you're in combat, then you're going to get countercharged, so you kind of have to focus them, otherwise...
You'd focus, I reckon, like, say, 3 characters per unit and try to take, like, 2 units off in a turn. And you'd move your whites up and you'd block with your zombies and your whites, and you'd surge them to buggery in turn 1 and get them really up in your opponent's face.
I think it'd be harder to play than first thought, but it'd be interesting. I'd like to see it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's just one of those funny ones on paper where, like, you probably wouldn't bother to build it. Although, in actual fact, modelling-wise, doing a bunch of Revenant Kings on worms and different kinds of different undead, like mythical creatures or whatever, like some of which fly and some of which don't, could just look really freaking cool.
That would be cool. Yeah. All right, Viv.
Somebody make that army
Just
and
just
send us
really
pictures.
quickly, how would that play objectively? Like, can that army fulfill objectives easily?
Yeah, the dudes on worms don't have
yeah,
individual.
of course. Yeah, okay, yeah. Cool.
Yep, so they can all claim, and then you've got your 2 skeleton hordes to claim skeleton archers to claim the back ones, which normally would be very fragile, but when you're dealing with all that flying stuff in your face, I don't know.
Yeah.
And then you've got the horde and the legion as well, just sort of packing out the middle. So yeah, I think it takes objectives pretty well, actually.
Yeah. No, I like it. Nice and responsive.
All right,
Oh,
show us what you've got, Viv.
okay, I'll go really quick. Basically, for drops, I've gone 4 units of 10 skeletal archers. My anvils are 3 units of 20 wraiths. My hammers are 2 units of Reaver Cav in regiments. And then supporting all this, I've got Margot the Faceless and 2 necromancers. However, before I start talking about how my list works, I can mix and match a lot of things. I'm thinking about dropping a unit of wraiths and the skeleton archers to take a unit of a horde of enslaved guardian archers with +1 to hit and 3 catapults. Because I feel like that gives me a shooting base that is ridiculous. People will have to come towards me, especially with Morgoth the Faceless shooting magic, and then the 3 catapults and the guardian archers.
Hang on. Run through your list again. You got 4 troops of archers.
Yeah, 4.
3 regiments of wraiths.
Yeah, 2 units of Cav, 2 necromancers, and Margoth the Faceless. And both the necromancers have Surge 8, and they're both on horses. So essentially how the list plays is I try and out-deploy you with my skeletal archers. Basically, I don't really care where they go. They're just going to try and pip off wounds and shoot chaff. Then my army will probably false deploy. Like, I'll put a unit of wraiths, or make it look like I'm picking one flank when really my intent is to go on the other flank. Or at least have a good strategy about where I want my Soul Reaver Cav to go. But essentially, I'll use my casters as a railgun for my wraiths. I will shoot a unit of wraiths into your face. I don't even really care if you kill it, because the next turn the Soul Reaver Cav will be staring at you, and I'm hoping that I have enough shooting and magic to deal with any chaff that kind of comes up to me. Because the wraiths are so goddamn tough, and because they fly, and everything in my list that matters is defense 6, so it's pretty bloody tough. And now that I've learned that Morgoth the Faceless can make things regen, that's just extra tough. Like, that's ridiculous. And
So are you on... How many points is that?
that is 1940. So
Okay,
I've
so
still
you
got
can take
60
the 25
points.
point upgrade.
Yeah, I've still got points for magic items. I just don't know really what to take because I don't know what any of them do. But I also kind of
Yeah,
like...
you'd go Potion of the Caterpillar, +1 speed, regen, Bob's your uncle, Fanny's your aunt,
Yep.
done.
But I still
good.
like the idea of dropping the skeleton archers in a unit of wraiths for the enslaved guardians and the 3
So it'd be all the archers?
Yeah. So I know I'd lose them all, but I know I probably wouldn't win that game. But I've also got the brute force appeal. If I put both those units of Soul Reaver Cav right next to each other, people are probably going to deploy on the other side of the map.
I think you're going to have a hard time out because you've just lost 4 drops.
Yeah. I'm not going to out-deploy in that situation, but I have so much shooting that they almost have to come to me.
Even with your 4 troops of archers, Viv, what if someone makes you deploy 4 units before they deploy 1 with the scrying gem?
I don't know magic equipment at all, so okay.
So it's a D3 plus 1 drops.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you could be placing 4 units before they've put anything on the board if you pick the side.
Yeah.
Scrying gem's so good. I feel like that. I haven't written that into any of my lists, and yet I keep feeling like if I went to a tournament for Cow, I'd be bringing along that.
It almost doesn't matter.
I think against certain armies it could be huge.
Like if I put my Soul Reaver Cav on the flank, I can reach pretty much anywhere depending on the terrain placement. Also, my anvils can fly. They can be where they need to be. Also, I have Surge 32 or something.
It's only flying 10.
Yeah, but with the Surge as well.
So you can only surge, what, 1 or 2 things?
Yeah, no, I'd probably use all 3 on one unit. Yeah, and I just try and kind of hide around. But I feel like
I like the list. It's very, very vulnerable to shooting, I think. Even with your defense 6, there's certain things. For example, you play against dwarves with a few cannons and catapults, and they basically, or if you play against ogres with their ogre shooters, even just one unit of ogre shooters, if they take off the Soul Reaver Cav, even 1 unit of Soul Reaver Cav greatly limits your attacking offensive potential. If they take off both units, then I think at that point you're sort of up shit creek without a paddle.
Do you reckon they'll, if they can, I've probably done something wrong.
Because they're not that hard to take off, even with defense 6. I was under the same impression of you that they were super hard to take off. I played Bensome's ogre shooters, and he just eliminated them in a turn with a single round of shooting. That's all you really need.
If he has to focus fire though, I don't think I'd give them a chance to...
I'm talking about 1 unit shooting them.
1 unit shooting them. So
they're like the enslaved guardian.
If I gave them...
Ogre shooters do 8 to 10 wounds in each shooting phase.
Yeah, okay.
Against defense 6.
Yeah, right.
It's pretty messed up.
If they do 8 wounds, I'm probably going to lose that unit.
That's right.
You also got to think about Elven Horde Archers
on 4s with Bane Chant and
piercing.
A dedicated gun line could give that army all kinds of trouble because it doesn't. Even though defense 6 is awesome, all its offensive power is tied into 2 units, which are just the most obvious targets in the army. I feel like.
Yeah.
Well, the wraiths aren't actually that bad at grinding things out, and Morgoth the Faceless, especially giving them the extra crushing strength.
Regen.
No, not even that. The crushing strength. So they're now crushing strength 2. You can do a little bit with that, and again, just...
I think the wraiths are great too. Don't get me wrong. I think the wraiths are really good, but they have great defensive power. They have great maneuverability. Yeah. They have great versatility with the Soul Reaver Cav. Yeah. It's just that when you lose a Soul Reaver Cav, offensively, 5 hits a turn doesn't do much for you.
Well, yeah, and I would probably be in trouble. But again, in our game that we played, Ben, it wasn't hard for me to just slap them on the flanks because I can deploy them so late, and I can put them in a position where...
Yeah, I wasn't sure with that deployment. I felt it was too open. You're probably going to take that side. I'm just not going to put a whole lot there.
Yeah. And I can understand, and because we play with so much terrain, I feel like even if we had a heavy shooting army...
You need terrain. This game needs terrain.
Yeah. 7 to 8 bits of
I have stuff to hide behind. I don't feel like... with the exception of those ridiculously powerful ogre shooters, I feel pretty
Caterpillar,
safe.
No. All it takes is 2 cannon hits, and one of those units is gone.
Yeah, okay.
I
don't even know what cannons do.
2 or 3 catapult hits. It's sort of similar to a catapult. They're kind of like D6 plus whatever damage with crushing strength 2 or 3.
Yeah.
So
3?
Is that about right? 3 crushing strength, or is it 4 on a cannon?
I'll just double check. So we're going
Might even be
the
4.
dwarf one.
Piercing, that is.
The Iron Belcher cannon has piercing 4.
piercing
Okay.
4, so
D6
they're
plus 3 if you've got a
D6 plus
Warsmith.
3, 2 plus to wound.
So on the alternative side, that is probably going to delete most things. So,
110 points.
like,
Yeah, it is. It absolutely
But the
is. So
thing
that's
is,
why you need
if
more than
the piercing
a couple
4
of impactful
doesn't matter
units.
if you've got defense 3 or 4 dudes, that you're just
Yeah.
wasting the piercing.
And I also
Exactly.
think, like,
When you got a horde of zombies,
Yeah.
piercing 4, you're like, okay, so you do 6 wounds to me. I've nerve 28. I don't care.
yeah. But I'm pretty sure they're not going to be shooting the zombies. And when it comes down
No,
to it,
that's
like,
right.
having the regen and the heal 6 on Morgoth is pretty good as well. So if you don't kill the Soul Reaver Cav, there's a good chance they're going to be in your face and relatively healthy.
This is true.
Mm.
You can't surge them, of course. You can
No,
only surge the
I
race,
like
but
that
still.
though. I like the fact that they can reliably go up the flanks without babysitting. The Wraiths need enough of that, I feel.
I feel like take my dwarfs next time.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, I
right.
feel like that's a rock paper scissors army. It's really cool. I like the army a lot. Don't get me wrong.
Very,
I
very
think
top
it's,
heavy, very
it is
punchy.
Very,
Yeah.
very top heavy.
Well-
All the defense 6 looks so awesome until you come up against a bunch
Well,
of piercing shooting.
That's not actually why I picked it. I picked it because I'm really new at the game and I just want to master hammer and anvil. So I picked very good hammers and very good anvils. And I just kind of want to get the nitty gritty down before I start, going for
Makes sense.
ridiculous combos and stuff like that.
Alright, with that out of the way, I'll give you my list. This is one that I've written up that I've gone for more of a theme. So I was thinking of having a Lich King with his lackeys raising a lot of the dead and surging forward. So I've got 3 regiments of skeleton spearmen because I like the phalanx and I think that would look cool. I've got 2 troops of archers. They're there to pip off wounds and objectives if I can. The Lich King also has his elite guard, the Revenants. No items on them. And Wraiths with the flying hammer, because I like the
Sorry,
idea.
what size are your revenants, Ben?
Regiment.
Regiment.
Yep. And then comes the wave of zombies. I've got a legion with the... Have a guess.
The
You took
bomb.
the boom.
Yeah, Crystal Pendant of Retribution. 2 hordes of zombie trolls, so that's a good solid core there. And some long distance shooting with 2 balefire catapults. The Lich King, he's on a horse, so he can see over the heads of the zombies. Banechant 3 and heal. And the 2 necromancers, they both have heal and one has Banechant. So a fairly slow moving wall of bodies with a couple of pow-pows from the top and a big bomb in the center.
Awesome.
Probably
I
won't
like
do
it.
great, but I think it would look good on the table. I don't think it's crap because it's got a lot of drops and a lot of stuff to get through.
It's cool.
Yep.
I feel like it's almost the reverse of Viv's army because it doesn't have a lot of offensive power, but defensively you can just take wounds for days.
And 15 drops is pretty good too.
15
Yeah.
drops is awesome.
Yeah,
Average is like 10 to 12 per army.
yeah.
Yeah, that is pretty sweet. If you can position the zombie trolls, them being your hardest hitters, in such a way that
I think the
you can
zombies
do
are.
damage. Yeah, that's true. The zombies. I mean,
Yeah,
God.
but they have the trolls have the highest crushing strength. I've got Banechant to help out where need be, and Balefire catapults to pick off anything big that I can see.
yeah. I actually had another list here, which I won't go through now, but it's like just revolves around legions of zombies, one of which had the crystal pendant as well, and then just like a million balefire catapults. Could actually be pretty rude.
Yeah, you're not going to win objective games with
Not
this.
very fun to play against though, or
Yeah.
with. I don't think.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, so
Cool
I think
list.
that what am I trying to say?
Wraps it up.
There we go. Thank you very much. That wraps up our Undead breakdown. Final thoughts. I think the army is quite varied.
Yeah. Well, those lists definitely prove that. I feel like.
Yeah, everyone's list was different.
Missing
Very
standalone
different.
monsters, but
I feel like the real beauty of the Undead list is actually what it can steal from other things to complement its playstyle and kind of cover its weaknesses. But until I play a lot more, I'm not really going to identify.
there's a fair few armies.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff to go
we
through.
could talk about forever what would fit, and so.
And like we said, although a lot of things look very similar, it's the subtleties that make a big difference.
Yeah.
All right. That'll...
Well, before we go,
Yeah?
can I plug my podcast or what?
Yes. So Hugh is from a Malifaux podcast. What's it called?
the Red Jokers.
Indeed
So
it
you
is.
can check out Red Jokers on iTunes or whatever other podcast app you download things with.
Mm-hmm.
If you like Malifaux, get stuck into us. If you don't particularly dig Malifaux, but you enjoy a bit of banter and tomfoolery, and maybe particularly if you're an ex-Warhammer player or something, you're in flux between games, you want to complement your Kings of War with a bit of a fun skirmish game on the side, Malifaux is the thing for you, because that
Yes.
game is the shit.
Having just gotten into it recently and painting up a crew, it is quite enjoyable to play. Yes.
Indeed. Although sometimes I clench my arse so hard playing against you, Ben, that it's just I'm creating diamonds left and right because it's such an intense game, man. It's just so tense.
I've picked my master. Guess who it is? Yes.
I don't know, dude with rats.
No.
Who's the most
McMorning.
vampiric?
No. I'm going Lei Shao, or whatever. The Resurrectionist 10 Thunders guy.
Thunders.
Just because he has
yeah.
shadow magic. He can teleport into shit and move stuff around. It's
True.
so cool.
He's a very very tricky master to learn.
No, I don't care.
Good
I
luck
picked
with
that
him.
one.
But yes, it's a
Awesome.
very good podcast. I think you're a very good host, Hugh.
Oh, thanks, homie.
Yeah.
I appreciate that,
Think
man.
you keep everything on
Sorry,
track
you can
and
suck him off later.
moving.
I gotta get to bed.
You will be pleased to learn we have slightly better sound quality as well.
Yes. Oh, I don't know about that last episode. Sounds like
Good point. Good
like you
point.
had
Well
microphone
made.
stuck
Yes.
in your mouth, but-
That was pretty shithouse.
Yeah. But yes, if you need anything Malifaux, just give the Red Jokers a listen. Do you have a podcast to plug with? No? Alright.
Yeah, actually. Nature
Yep.
Scientific Journal has an amazing podcast. If you want to learn something, Google that.
What's it about? Scientific journals?
Yeah, pretty much.
Sounds good. It's what I listen to all the time when I'm playing games.
All right. Well, next time you're reading your Kings of War rulebook, don't forget to replace the word vampire with Vivian, and you'll have a lot more fun.
Mm-hmm.
Enjoy your Kings of War games.
Yeah, probably means a bit more if you know a Vivian, but it's still fun. Thanks, guys, for coming on. Thanks, Spoon, for also being there. And if that's all there is, we'll see you next time.
Boy.
Bye.
Play Malifaux.
Yeah, direct misfire blowing up the game. Talking many war games is our aim. From rulebooks to advice, we cover it all. With the best tactics, we never fall. Bensome and Spoon are your hosts every vid. Misfiring, but aiming up ahead. Comment, like, and subscribe today. Keeping you notified and up to date. Come check us out at facebook.com/direct